By the way, if they want to think to take on government, if we get out of line, which they're talking again about, well, guess what? They need F-15s. They don't need a rifle.
What's up, North Carolina? And thank you for tuning in for another incredible episode of Liberty Inc. Season 4, Episode 7. We're starting to build up a bit of a catalog here. Today's episode is 3 segments. 3 very interesting segments. For the first segment, I have Feena Bonoan, who is running for Senate in Florida as a Libertarian, and Mike Scott, who is running in Maryland as a Libertarian, who are working on some Libertarian cross-pollination, candidate promotion, unification, working together, and we talk about what we need to be doing to get people elected. And we were supposed to go for 20 minutes, and I will tell you, it went about an hour. It was a really interesting conversation. And in the spirit of the cross-pollination, Mike Ross is going to be the first of a number of the LPNC candidates who will be on their Tuesday live stream. I will be dropping the link below if you take a look. And I will be on there July 2nd. And they do a replay. I believe it's on Monday afternoon, but it's in the conversation and will be in the comments here. Then we are continuing our O.P.P. Other People's Party series with John Warren and Leigh Thomas Brown. Leigh is a 3-time Republican candidate in right near here in Charlotte, in Cabarrus County, and John Warren also lives close to Charlotte and I called him a Republican influencer, and he didn't love it, but he sort of acknowledged it. We have a very interesting conversation. I certainly feel like there are a lot of areas where we overlap with Republicans. There are a lot of areas where we overlap with Democrats on paper. In practice, my perspective is that neither of them does anything they say they're going to do, and they just sort of serve their donor special interest overlords. But we do get into it, and it's a very interesting discussion, and we cover a lot of topics. And similarly to when I have had people from the left on, it went very well. It was very civil. We agreed on some, we disagreed on some, but I think we unpacked a lot. And then finally, as always, Dub and Groo Talk Sports. Remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Please share if you have questions, comments, hate mail, trolling, or just want to grab a beer sometime. communications@lpnc.org. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Hey, what's up, Liberty lovers of North Carolina? A very special segment for you right now. I've got Feena Bonoan and Mike Scott running for office, respectively, in Florida and in Maryland. 2 great people. We are coming together. They'll be having Mike Ross, our governor candidate, firetheuniparty.com, on their podcast next week. Feena reached out about getting some people from North Carolina who are running for office, and so I definitely wanted to get them on to do some cross-pollination. I think this is amazing. Before I jump into any further introductions, I do want to say, Mike and Feena, we're both in the military. Thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for your service. I say this every time. We can have very mixed feelings on what is the appropriate level of U.S. military buildup. Should we be overseas at all, anywhere? And we lose in the shuffle. You put your lives on the line for our liberty, and that means something to me for whatever that's worth. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we wanted to have this discussion and kind of talk about actually getting Libertarians elected. You're reaching out to Libertarian candidates. All 3 of us are running for office. And there are certainly some, I think, who have chances at localized elections, and decentralized is the way we want to go. But the question that I told you, I have a question for you that I want to sort of kick it off with, and I'm interested to get your responses, because someone wrote this, I guess I read this about 6 weeks ago, and I have been obsessing over it since, because it sort of summarizes our problem, I think, pretty succinctly. How do you get a group of ruthless individualists to come together and work collectively towards a goal?
You want first shot?
Sure. How I get a group of individuals to work together towards a common goal. First of all, when I ask for volunteers, I ask them in a way that, you know, it gives them an opportunity to say what they want to do. So a lot of times when you're giving tasks to people, you're putting the wrong task for the wrong person, right? So getting them to do what they want to do already. You don't want to put an extrovert on, licking envelopes, and you don't want to put an introvert on door knocking. That's the reality. You want to give people their strengths, but if door knocking is what's on the agenda and you got introverts, let them drive. Let them be the driver. Let them get you some water. It's about getting people to do what they are comfortable with and what they want to do. One of the things that I reached out to this year when I was campaigning to even just get the filing fee raised was I reached out to artists specifically, because the Libertarian Party, we have a lot of artists in the party, and we did a telethon. And we don't hear a lot from the artists in the Libertarian Party because we're so politics heavy, and we have a lot of really great artists. And so I got to shine that part of our party, and that's people that usually aren't going to be the ones necessarily knocking on doors and running for office even, but they're there to help. They want to help. They want to get involved. And this is their way. This is what they have to give, whether it's a song or it's a, we had songs, we had movies, we had, just like all manner of personality, even paintings. We auctioned off some paintings. And I remember when I was at the North Carolina convention, actually in 2023, I believe it was the 2023 convention. I went out there, and at y'all's gala, right? You guys auctioned off some artwork, and I still have some of that artwork in my house. It was a set of chickens. It was 2 pictures. And so one picture I have, and I gave the other picture to a young girl that was there who had decided she was going to be a libertarian. And in case your viewers don't know this, I grew up in North Carolina. I grew up, like all my school years were in North Carolina. In fact, I want to show you guys something real quick before I forget and we get lost.
While you're grabbing it, this was driving me crazy because I knew I'd met you. I met you at the convention. I knew we had met somewhere, and that's awesome.
This hangs up in my in my house still, and it's hung up in my house. And this is the town that I grew up in. It's a little town called Hickory, North Carolina, and so one of the first like memes that someone made for me out in the wild was Libertarians Who Make Art, because I did an interview with them when I won, when I did this film that was winning some awards in the short film sectors and whatnot. So the quote was, how was it? It was something about me getting detention when I was in high school because I refused to give the teacher a response of either I'm Republican or Democrat. And it wasn't just that. Listen, by the end of the exercise, because it was one of those exercises where you have to be like, where he was trying to divide the class up and get them into that voting process. And I was like, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a Libertarian. I've known I'm a Libertarian for my whole life. Like Libertarian Party in North Carolina has been around for a long time, longer than I've been alive. So, anyways, by the end of the exercise, it wasn't just me that was claiming Libertarian. I had a couple friends too. They're like, you know what? I think I'm Libertarian too. So I ended up getting detention for, disrupting the class. And so I think when you're getting people involved, right? So when you're getting people involved, you find the people that you give them, first of all, you give them something they want to do or they're excited about doing. You don't give them, you don't put the wrong shoe on the foot, don't do that. So give them something that they're capable of doing. And also it's get them excited about doing it. Make it fun. That I wouldn't have had the success of the telethon if it wasn't fun. And the same thing in school. I wouldn't have had people behind me if they weren't having fun disrupting the system with me. So that's my advice, my 2 pieces of advice for finding volunteers to help. And this is my third campaign. I ran twice in Hawaii, once in 2020, 2022 for U.S. Senate, and now I'm out here in Florida where I was born. Once again, I was raised in North Carolina. I'm running for U.S. Senate out here, and this is my third race. I have returned people that are returning to the campaign from last elections. Yeah. And that's, from way different sides of the country. We're going from Hawaii to Florida, and I've still got the same treasure. I've still got the same person that I call for help with the text banking. And you know how I found them? I found them through our national party. So I found my text banker while I was helping and volunteering for the Joe Jorgensen campaign, doing text banking. Even though I was running for office, I was at a point where there's nothing more I can do. And so I volunteered for someone else's campaign, and I met other people who were also volunteering for a campaign. So I'm with the group of people that I want to be with already, right? And find your tribe. And I know there's caucuses for some people, not for everybody. I don't bash people that are in them, because I understand you got to find your tribe, you got to find your group. Like, my group is candidates. I'm a candidate right now. I'm going to be a candidate until I'm old and ugly, wherever I am, because I believe in the party, I believe in the movement, and I believe in our candidates in general. And I've got a great resume. I've got a great, coming up story. I haven't screwed up my life too bad. I've never been arrested. I've got a great credit score. I've got the time. I can do this. This is what I can do. And so I tell people, if we all do what we can, when we can, together, we can save the future. Maybe it's the future of America, future of humanity, future of the world, but we can work together to save it. But we can only do what we can when we can, because anything else we can't do.
I took your question slightly differently. When you said, how do you get a bunch of rugged individualists going in the same direction? I thought you meant, how do you gain market share? And to me,
I meant both. I meant that and what Feena answered, actually. It's
cool,
because I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
No, but I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. That's the first thing. The Gottmans came up with a long time ago. They said that they're doctors, psychologists who can figure out within like an hour of watching you and your spouse whether or not you guys are going to make it. So they said 69% of the times in a relationship, you guys don't change your mind. Whatever it is that you do and you argue over day one, you're going to argue over year 10. So I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, because when I go up and try to do that, all they do is get combative and defend their position. All I do is inform, and I try to remain civil, because the facts are horrifying. I point to my little OODA loop, observe, look at what is, not how you want things to be, not how you hope things were, not how you fear them to be, but what is. And what is our government borrows $100,000 per second, every second of every day, and every bit of spending those people vote on, including the stuff they voted on during Super Bowl Sunday, which pisses me off to this day. Every discretionary dollar they vote on is borrowed, because Medicare costs have gone up, the interest on the debt has gone up, and all these folks want to argue libertarian purity tests and volunteerism and doing whatever to whoever. And my thing is, I would love to have a libertarian purity test, but I would like America to be around to see it. So let's shrink the government a little bit, which means full market share. So I'm not trying to change minds. I'm trying to inform and hopefully motivate, because as she said, I can do the job. I did 2 Pentagon tours. I've had billion-dollar budgets. I had a top secret since '94. I've been in rooms and handed people the papers you see on C-SPAN, the guy who hands them. I was the idiot in the back handing the paper to the idiot that read it. This is nothing new to me, and those people aren't as smart as me. They're not as smart as Feena. They're not as smart as you. They have information at a much higher level, and their owners make sure that they are briefed correctly. That's the only difference. So what I'm trying to say is, we the people deserve to be represented, and these idiots are spending, what is this election cycle? $10 billion is what they're expecting on this campaign?
At least.
$10 billion should change lives. It shouldn't win or lose political office campaigns. And if you're willing to spend 20, 30 million on a campaign, You don't even know my interests, dog. You can't represent them. So I assume if people hear the truth, they would be beating my door down, because my only question for a nominee is, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And if they answer yes to either one of those, I don't vote for them. So I don't know how it's so hard, especially with the nominees who are running against me. Lockdown Larry and Angela also bought with their records. Holy cow, man. How is somebody not just voting none of the above to those two? I should get it by default. So we'll figure it out. But I just try to inform and civilize. That's my goal.
So a lot to unpack there. First of all, shout out to Libertarians who make art. If I had known you were going to bring them up, I would have worn my t-shirt. Awesome group. I highly recommend everyone go check them out. You all said a lot of interesting things. So, because I do want to sort of break down this idea of, can we change the system from within the system? So I'm with you. So specifically, there's one Republican I'm backing this election, and it's because they're both in Congress right now. They're both running for Attorney General, and the Republican voted against FISA 702 and the Democrat voted for it. So that's like, there's no Libertarian in the race. I'll back on that. There's no one else I'm supporting. Okay. But I did have, so I recorded last night, but you all will be on first when I publish this on Friday. I had a couple of Republicans on, and I was just like, make your case. Like, Republicans love to claim that they're libertarian. And we say in North, I don't know, maybe this is elsewhere, but in North Carolina, always like, Republicans run as libertarians and then govern as Democrats. It's like, if the Republican Party did what it said it's going to do, there wouldn't be much need for the Libertarian Party. The Republican Party loves the government. They love their version of government. But what was really fascinating to me as I was chatting with these two people, good people, some of the ideas I was proposing, it was foreign to them. Like they're both really pro qualified immunity. And that's a tough one for me to swallow too. But I was like, explain to me. And they gave, and no judgment, no whatever, like, make your case, go ahead. You have a reason. And they really believe that there are people with malign intent that would leverage a situation with no qualified immunity to just sort of sue police officers into the ground, essentially. And I'm like, well, that's why we need body camera footage. It would take care of it quickly. But I introduced to them the idea that, like, one bad apple for a cop with the power of life and liberty to deprive you of life and liberty backed by the state, one bad apple is one too many. Like, there should be a 0 failure rate. It should be the same level as airline pilots. And you could see they were like, well, we never looked at it like that. And then drug legalization came up, and they were like, well, marijuana shouldn't be legal. And I was like, so you want to put someone in a cage for smoking a plant in their basement? We never thought of it like that. And then they're like, well, we don't like the smell. And I was like, actually, there's an argument under the non-aggression principle that if you're stinking up somebody's house, like, I'd be okay with a balance where it's like, there's a fine, that's an ordinance, you have to handle it. But
every time I hear that excuse of I don't like the smell, I'm reminded of something that happened to me when I was in college. Okay, so I went to college in Hawaii where I used my GI Bill out there. And I guess somebody had smoked a joint in the stairwell or something. And let me tell you, me and my friend, we had tacos. And it was like a video editing class. So we're sitting in these seats all uncomfortable anyways. And we'd had tacos. Like, it was like, he's prior military, I'm prior military.
some noxious smells okay and some not.
Yeah. We were farting it up. I'm just gonna say it. We were farting it up. It was like we were having a battle of who's could stink worse. And some cops came through, and they were literally sniffing the air. They were sniffing the air to find that joint. They came into our classroom and was like, do you guys smell that? And of course, me and my friend are like,
oh, we smell it.
Oh yeah, we smell it.
That's a pretty good
Come over
story.
here, get a whiff.
My big problem with qualified immunity, because I wanted to make this point before I forgot it, and ew, by the way, just ew.
Yeah, no, it's ew. Okay.
I'm uppity now, damn it. Yes, I am. No, my big problem with qualified immunity is that they don't hold each other responsible. If the cops would police themselves, but that thin blue line more often than not protects the aggressors and the bad actors from consequences. Dick Gregory came up with an idea that would fix it. You just give them all insurance. If you're found no stupid in no stupid zone, nobody will insure you, so you can't get a job as a cop. Go do something else. I can't control your actions, but I may be able to control how you treat others if your livelihood depends on it. So I have a love-hate relationship with cops. My first wife was a cop. One of my best friends is a cop. I don't mind cops, but men don't talk to them for no reason. If it's
Our vice presidential candidate's a cop.
our vice president, but I don't generally talk to cops if they're on duty or if they're working. Like if a cop comes up and talks to me, the back of my card says, I do not consent. I do not ask questions. I do not
That's awesome.
comply. I've been passing those out.
Oh,
My
I think
kids
I'm
are-
other side of the spectrum, Mike. I don't think I told you my last little tour in the military. I was a prison guard. I was a prison guard
Abu Ghraib?
and say again?
Did you go to Abu Ghraib or not? Or
I was
Gitmo?
in Pearl Harbor. I was in Pearl Harbor as a prison guard.
Interesting.
That's
Yeah.
correctional custody, isn't it? Or we're like
That's
real
a
prison.
You know, that's a prison
Wow.
on an island, even like an island of an island.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Did you beat anybody with your nightsticks?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna ask that question.
Come
Table
on, you got to ask if you
Attitude.
beat somebody down, if you gave anybody some attitude adjustment. Yeah, don't answer that
never
on
had
camera.
I never had to use physical force on anyone. We learned the art of verbal judo. So I can talk, I can de-escalate a lot of situations. As long as you always have the upper hand, and that's how prisons work, you know, they make sure that the people in charge always have the upper
Oh
hand.
yeah.
Even
they
if
have-
there was a riot or something, just lock the doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll say my kids are almost 10 and almost 16. And you can ask them right now, like, what do you do if a cop talks to you? I don't answer questions. I want to call my parents. I want a lawyer. I don't consent. I can videotape. This is First Amendment protected. But I bring the cops one up a lot. And I brought it up with the Republicans because it bugs me more than really any other issue over time. And the reason is I want to like cops. I really want to like cops. It's the same, like, I like soldiers because you all signed up and potentially put your life on the line to defend freedom with no second thought. And I want to believe that cops are the same. But the vast majority that I encounter, and I'm not stereotyping because there are without question some really good cops, some really honorable and noble cops, but they go in because they're middling elsewhere or they have bully complexes. And we should be trying to weed those ones out. And so then what I brought up to the Republicans is like, why not hold them accountable? Like, why this automatic deference to them? So I'm trying to find this middle ground. But I can't help but think, so like, there's one Republican in the federal, well, probably two who I would support. I would back Thomas Massey, and I will definitely back Justin Amash. I gave him some money.
I knew those two when you said two Republicans. Those are the only two I could think of.
I mean, Rand Paul's not bad, but he's not his dad. Yeah. But Justin Amash is a libertarian, but he's just like, fine, I need to run as a Republican to win, and he's going to win. And that, to me, just shows how insane the two-party system is, that if he has libertarian next to his name,
he loses.
Yeah. Exact same guy runs as a Republican. And
well, see, they own you once, and I was going to run as a Republican, and I'm glad I didn't because one, I'm a libertarian, and two, lockdown Larry, when he swept in, Larry Hogan, the ex-governor, he beat John Myrick, who I actually enjoyed as a candidate. It really sucks, but when you go in with an R or a D next to your name, then you're beholden to that system and nothing changes. Nothing changes. I'm not even fundraising. I had a guy email me the other day, said, how can I give money to you? I said, if you really want to contribute something, buy a yard sign, put that Bammy in your yard and tell other people to do the same. Money is not going to be my path to victory. It can't be. I can't out fundraise these folks. I'm never going to get up $2 million to do this because if every libertarian in Maryland gave me, or everybody with libertarian leanings, I might be able to get $2.5 million if I'm on the phone from now till doomsday. And that's what my opponents make in 2, 3 months.
I don't think you could if you just stuck to libertarians, because
No, you couldn't.
there's campaign finance like limits on everyone.
Yeah.
So there's not, and just the sheer numbers just aren't there.
But it shouldn't even be that way. You shouldn't be beholden to a political party, but they're pimps. The game is divide and conquer, dude. They sit there and they give you the Orange Don and Holocaust Joe because they're so abhorrent. You're so afraid of one evil, you'll vote the other one in and not think about it. And nobody notices it's a pimp game.
And
that's it.
That's exactly it. You say what, 10 billion, 14 billion, whatever it's going to spend. People aren't spending that because they like the candidates. They're spending that because it's worth it to them, the person who they have gotten to agree to their policies.
And their owners have unlimited resources because they're taking our tax money and giving it to them. So
or printing more or doing both, taxing us on deflated money.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So you two reached out. You have this awesome idea. Let's promote libertarian candidates across the country, and ask Mike when you talk to him next week about the financial battles that we are facing, trying to get him on the debate stage. I'll let him tell you about it, but it's ridiculous, the hurdles they set. But what inspired you all to do this?
I guess I'll take it away because it's kind of my thing. And the reason why it's my thing is, okay, so I'm running for office out here in Florida, and it costs like $10,000 to be on the ballot in Florida. But we needed this is a presidential year. And if no one else was going to step up to run for U.S. Senate in the state of Florida, by God, I would. I've done it. I've ran for U.S. Senate before. And, I know we focus on local campaigns. I get that. I understand that. But I haven't lived in the state of Florida in over 10 years. I haven't lived in the state of Florida in over 30 years. And I'm not that old if you look. I'm not that old. So we're talking baby here. It would be very disingenuous to the people for me to run a local race. And so I'm going around, and the thing is the U.S. Senate, a libertarian going to the U.S. Senate is going to do the same thing. It's going to be the same libertarian, regardless of whether they're coming from Hawaii or they're coming from Florida or they're coming from North Carolina, because it's a U.S. Senate seat. There is only 100 U.S. senators, and one of them being libertarian. Give us two, give us 3. And we will talk about do what you can when you can. And together we're going to save the future. That's how we're going to do it, because that is 3 U.S. House of Representatives. They get washed away. You maybe never even hear from them again.
Ron Paul was almost ineffective. Yeah.
So, all right. So my number one request when I was asking people for dollars, right? So I'm like, I'm doing this telethon. I did the telethon. I'm calling everybody up, and everybody's like, can you do a podcast? Can you do a podcast? And I did one podcast a couple years ago. I was a co-host on Adam versus the Man, and that was like a really popular.
I remember that.
Yeah. That I had pink hair back in the day.
I'm gonna go back and watch them now.
Oh, funny. But that's my standard. Like, I thought he ran a great show. I wouldn't have been on his podcast if he did not run a good show. His show was like exact times, and he had it mapped out, slotted out as far as time slots and everything. And that's how I wanted to run. If I do anything, and I just hate the idea of doing another libertarian podcast. So it's not a podcast. Please don't call it a podcast, because we even had a radio offer today and I had to turn it down because we're not an audio thing. We're more visual than anything else. Because the whole goal is to have it streaming on as many platforms, on shared or whatever, however we can. And so when people scroll through, there's a good chance they're going to catch a libertarian commercial. And that's really what it's about. Okay. I want your commercials. I want your promos, your 30-second sound clips. It's for libertarian candidates to make their 30-second sound clips. I'm okay with saying, hey, if the candidate wants to say that again a different way, yeah, man, let's do it. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I want you to sound good, because you know what? The Republicans and Democrats, they have Fox News. They have CNN, they have MSNBC, they have CBS and ABC. What do the libertarians have? Nothing. And when that radio company asked me if they could, if we wanted to pay for their service, by the way, too.
Yeah.
And part of how they wanted us to come up with the funds was invite our Republicans and Democrats on the show? I said, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And good for you for doing it. But here's my thing. If I'm doing this, I'm paying the bills on like streaming it and everything is going out on my channels. It's going to be Libertarians on there. Because you know what? Until I would love to start a Libertarian network, like full blown ABC, CBS quality tier network where we promote liberty, we promote libertarians, and we don't we play that game and we treat the Republicans and Democrats the same way they have treated us, as if we don't exist, as if they can't hear us. Let's turn our music up a little bit louder so we can drown them out, and we're going to scoff at them and we will boo you off stage.
Wow.
No, I love that idea though. So this, and I call it a podcast.
I do too. Love an idea of booing them off stage. Fuck it, let's go.
No, the whole libertarian network. So my concept with this, like, it's most of my episodes are like 2.5 hours long. People are like, that's real long for a podcast, but it's like 7 short videos, 30, 40 minutes. I'll put it in the table of contents, say what it is, and every 7 to 10 days. And I found since I've started doing that, my engagement's gone up like 700%.
So our structure is we have every week, it's on Tuesdays, every week we have an issue, and that's just a conversation starter. That's kind of like how Adam always talked about the news. If you watched his show, you know, he always did the daily news. I can't do a daily show. That's too much. I'm still running a campaign. So is Mike. And that, so there's always an issue. And then we have a 30 minutes of a campaign of a candidate. And then we have a 10-minute presidential update, and it happens at noon. Every Tuesday. And that's where you can find out what our presidential candidates doing this week, what they're doing next week, and what they did last week. Just real short. It's only 10 minutes. Sometimes we'll have the presidential candidates, sometimes not. But we do have their media team. And then we do another 30-minute interview, you know, and you notice how that's got a lot of time there. So we've only accounted for was that 70 minutes, 70 minutes. And then we've got 5 minutes worth of intro and outro. So now we're at 75 minutes, maybe give us 10 minutes of banter. Now we're at 85 minutes, and the rest is commercials. It is commercials, and I'm adamant about playing those commercials. I don't like, we will cut to commercial between these little these intervals that we have. If I feel like we're just kind of like struggling with the conversation, I'll cut to a commercial, because that's what we're for. Because when people are scrolling on their devices, they don't hear, they see first. And the commercials are those quick grabbers, right? So our last candidate that we had on last week, he's going to be doing this MMA fight, and he had a poster up, and I kept flashing that as many times as I could, because his poster is him with his shirt off, and he's got some muscles. He's ripped, you know. And I was like, here you go, thirsty girls. And we also were playing a little bingo with the game too, with the show, because you know, bloopers happen, and if you don't laugh about them, you're going to cry about them, and I'd rather laugh about them. And so we've got a bingo game to keep the audience interactive. Still waiting for someone to fill out that complete bingo card. Once they fill out that complete bingo card, send it to me via picture, message. I don't care. Courier, period, pigeon.
I don't think we actually made a bingo card for the thing. I don't really believe we made.
Yeah, that's the catch. That's how they get the prize. Because once the bingo card is made, then we can redistribute it. Because all they have to do is give me a winning bingo card. But then they've won.
Now that I know
I'll give them a free sign, and then they give it. I'll even deliver it if they're close enough. Anywhere in Florida or Georgia, I'll probably deliver it. Maybe North Carolina too. Maybe North Carolina. Always looking for an excuse to go visit my aunt.
Anytime. I'm not too far from Hickory.
So that's the show. I think I said a lot about the show. Are we good on the show? It's every Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Oh wait, hold on. One more thing about the show that's important. I'm sorry, and then I'm gonna give it back to Mike. One more thing about the show is it's going on until Christmas Eve. We are going to Christmas Eve because a lot of people don't realize a lot of campaign items are still wrapping up after November. You still have FEC filing to do. You still got to go get your signs. You got to send out thank you letters. and it's just a nice round thing. And if you want to get on the show, please contact me or Mike, reach out to us and we'll put it out there. Thank you.
I was just going to say the whole point was to highlight candidates, like she said, and I think it's necessary because the Libertarian Party, I don't know if they have favorites or if they have ideas of which races are more winnable than others, or if they just, I mean, there's a lot of turmoil going on and flux going on in the party right now. So I figured somebody needed to step out there and highlight. And when she said, "Hey, you want to do a stream?" And I'm like, "Oh, heck no, I don't want to do a stream. Oh my God, no, hell no." And she said, "But we're going to highlight candidates." And I said, "That sounds fun." And I did ask the Daily Show to have me as a guest host, but then they hired that hack Jon Stewart dude. So so I decided to do the stream. And then this is actually my audition for the Daily Show if the whole Senate thing doesn't work out.
There you go. There you go.
You and me both. Let's tag team that next.
Go. Let's go.
Okay. So that's a pretty cool concept. The live stream is interesting, and to do it every Tuesday, that's brave. I've gone on a few live.
I forgot the best part. It ain't just Tuesday. It's Monday too. So Monday, you may notice if you look at my stream, Monday nights at 7 p.m. I play the same shit, different day. It's literally called SSDD. And that's the previous Tuesdays restreaming. Okay. And so on a Monday, on an evening time, in case you missed the Tuesday. Once again, that's just so people are scrolling, they're going to see it. So it's also on Monday. So we're hitting it twice. And I'm on there, or Mike will be on there on Monday, just kind of being there. Maybe we'll make some commentary about what happened on the show. Maybe not. Maybe we just run it. But the point is the commercials.
So it's like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, and welcome to the Satellite of Love.
Yeah, on the Monday re-showing, yeah.
Did you miss my telethon? Did you watch my telethon?
I have not seen the telethon. I made a note. That's what you see me looking down.
It's not something you can see now. It's done. It's over. Once you go over 12 hours consecutive, no one records it.
Interesting.
And it was
40 we're thinking about doing one in December.
Know this. After 12 hours, AI no longer watches it. So you could pretty much do whatever you want. I got dinged within the first 2 minutes off of Facebook saying that I had sexually explicit content, which I did not. We were wearing like business jackets in 80-degree weather in Florida. Everybody that was on, we were all stuffy looking. And I was like, how is this sexually explicit material? But somebody was hating, and that's okay. But the thing is the telethon, that's what we did. We did like the Mystery Science Theater where we played Citizen Kane. We played Dr. Strangelove and How I Learned to Love the Big Bomb. Yeah, it is. So and we did that whole like Mystery Science Theater thing. So, and that was a really successful thing that we did, and people liked it. So I'm kind of reinventing it.
Make note. We were going to do like sort of like games off camera, like who can take the most shots, but not show it and just show the people. But like, if you give $50, like then this person has to take a shot and just.
That actually would make a crap ton of money because my friends would love to see how much I can drink now. I don't drink hardly anymore.
So I'm in the process of doing a new telethon thing, and I'm down to have you guys on board with it too. However you want to do it. Let me just tell you what it is.
24-hour telethon instead of a 40?
It's going to be continuous until we reach a dollar amount. We have to do it because this is what we're going to do. And Mike's kind of skeptical on it still, but I'm selling it. We're going to filibuster. We're going to get the U.S. Senate candidates for the Libertarian Party. Hopefully I can get them all involved. And we're going to filibuster until we've reached like some arbitrary dollar amount. And I just think that the reason why we're doing it is, of course, whatever, raise funds for something, but also to prove to the American people and also those that are in office right now that we know how to use the tools that they wield in the U.S. Senate just as good as they do.
I do not like the idea of ranting for several hours about whatever, although I did like what's his name's from Parks and Rec. Patton Oswalt, he did a whole thing on
the Star Wars one, and
did a nice long filibuster on Star Wars. Like I could do something like that for Star Trek, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I think that would be cool. I mean, I might recite some
Oh.
Shakespeare or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm down. I could do poetry too, and I could talk about punk rock for a while. Or
My
Reagan.
haikus don't take that long, man. Haikus are like that. It's too short.
Actually, you know what I would do? I think I would do is I would read my complete screenplay that I wrote because it's original content too, about North Carolina.
Wow. Okay.
It's good. It's like
I'd like to read
120
it.
pages. Period.
I would like to read it anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It's on the internet in the Wayback Machine though. You got to go through the Wayback Machine to find it, but it does exist on the internet still.
I'll dig it out.
IRC? Back in the IRC days, Internet Relay Chat, that 150 million years ago?
I remember
No,
that.
no. So when I was moving from Hawaii to Florida and I was between selling my house, you know, funds were tight. It was, you know, and when funds are tight, family comes first, eating comes before websites, and websites get lapsed. And when websites get lapsed, then and they
Yeah.
stay and if they stay lapsed too long, there's no backup to it except for the Wayback Machine. So it exists, but you gotta go way back.
You can rewrite it. It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Oh no, I have hard copies and everything still. I have real copies.
I was
You
just
two
gonna
are
ask
fun.
Rob.
I'd watch your telethon.
I would watch the telethon too. I just don't know if I would filibuster during the telethon. Oh my God.
I can ramble for hours about things. Nonsense.
Yeah,
too.
but I have a tendency to go way off script because I have a terrible sense of humor and I like Dennis Miller-esque pulling stuff from all sorts of places. You don't know what I'm gonna say if I go too far off left.
And that's what's going to be exciting.
No, that's what gets played back, man. My man Gary Johnson didn't know what Aleppo was, and
No,
he
I
lost
did
his
when he said
entire
that.
presidency.
You know what?
I knew
No
what
one.
Aleppo was, and I still didn't know what Aleppo was. That's way the hell over there, man. Don't nobody care about no damn Aleppo. Or what did Kane say? Uzbekistan? I know exactly where that is too, and I don't care where that is. That's way over there, man. We shouldn't be paying for it.
That's the answer.
So,
That's
yeah.
when because I ran for mayor of Charlotte last cycle. And it's cool that you like running, Feena. I hate it. I like helping campaigns. I like doing the communication stuff. I love being involved. I don't mind being in the public eye. I'm very extroverted, but I just campaigning, like I feel dirty.
It sucks.
We have to do it. You have to do it.
I will tell you this: it does get old having people shit on you all the time and having to just.
And friends too.
And, yeah.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
I was in an
But
event.
being former military,
I guess that steals you for it.
yeah, that was
Get
one
it
of those
thick
lines at the convention that I loved Angela for. That was the best. That was like the kind of line that I would hear in the military and boot camp. You eat shit and keep moving. And I was like, okay,
That's about right.
go to battle with her now.
So I was asked when I was running, it was like October 25th. It was like 4 days before my anniversary. But they said, so what do you think of what happened on October 7th and how Israel's going to respond? Because it hadn't really gone in yet. And I said, I think we need body camera reform in North Carolina. Gary Johnson's answer should have been take care of the United States.
Yes.
That's a good answer too. Yeah. Just reframe the question.
Mm-hmm.
How many of my tax dollars should go over there to help that stuff? It would have been a good question too. You know,
instead we have this impulse to be like, well, it all started in the 1880s following a series of pogroms where the Jewish people were yes, we get it. This is libertarians. I bet you if all three parties took an average IQ test, we would score multiple standard deviations above the others. That's not necessarily working to our benefit. Like
it does. Well, that's the other
real
crappy
quick,
part.
You mentioned Dennis Miller. Do you remember when he made the comparison between Bush and Kerry? He was like, Kerry's a chess player and Bush is more checkers, but we just need checkers moving across the board. I think about that a lot. Like we need checkers.
We need. I forgot what I was gonna say, but we need change. And I that's what I was gonna say. I think our problem is we're right. And we freaking know we're right. And if we know we're right, you become an asshole. When you know you're right, you get all self-righteous and and it just makes our argument kind of crappy and people want to fight with us instead of listening to the argument. So I don't think it should be arguing anymore. I think we should really inform, because it doesn't matter if we're right if we never win.
We're competing in a marketplace of ideas, and they're playing a game where they sell their souls for $12 billion. And
yeah, and I mean that's great, but why the hell would you have a popularity contest powered by money? All that's going to do is get idiots who are beholden to money, and that's why you get Kitty Porn Island. You know, his Jeff Epstein's client list will never get, because they're all on it, the entertainers and the politicians. They'll never freaking fix the border because the money's in the fight. Ditto Social Security. They had 65 years to do that. I don't think they fixed it yet. Ditto Medicare. Name any problem. Education. All of it's worse. And all of it's more expensive, and those cats want more money, and that's always their freaking answer, dude. It makes me so tired. It makes me tired. By the way, I'm in Ocean City right now. I was at the Juneteenth parade, passing out flyers.
Oh, happy Juneteenth! I didn't even think about that. It's late.
Thank you. And I was on the beach, so West Side Hard Life.
There you go. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I needed some beach.
I've been celebrating this holiday for a lot longer than it's been a federal holiday. I'm like, any day that there's more freedom is like a good day in my book.
Any day there's more freedom. We need a more freedom day. We need an actual July 4th, except I gotta pay taxes on the freaking fireworks I buy to celebrate not paying taxes. Those mother effers. I want them all gone. If you're in office now, I want you gone, man. You need to be gone because you're not doing the job. So
on that note, I told you I wouldn't keep you all too long. So one last question, and it's a perfect setup for it. We talked about how to organize. We talked about the things we're doing to organize, some of the opportunities right now, what it's like to be a candidate, where you come from. What do you think we need to be doing? And Feena, you alluded to this, but as a national party to promote candidates right now, what's the top-down thing that's missing? Because I think we all understand the game when it comes to the ground-up part.
Let me think about that for a minute. Let Mike take this one first.
Unify. I think we need a unifying voice in the party, because right now we have several very loud, very angry people on all sorts of different sides. Since we are not actually a party, we're a group of rugged individualists. So we have to have a unifying voice, and that unifying voice should be someone from on high saying, yo, I get it. Y'all don't agree about 100%, but he's an 85 or 87% cat. Can you just ditch the rest, or maybe give some nuance to it? Because I've heard, and I'm going to talk about our presidential nominee, Chase Oliver. They've called him a groomer and stuff because he believes that a parent should be able, he said himself, his position was, I don't want surgical options, but you know, I wouldn't prevent parents from giving hormones and stuff. And to me, do I love the idea? No, but once you start letting the government decide whether you can or can't treat your kids, it's only 2 more steps before they decide you have to treat your kids. Yep. And then you got mandatory vaccines. And that's what I always do. I look at what's the worst thing that can happen with this law.
Because it will.
And because it will. I mean, everybody's talking about closing the borders, and I'm like, okay, what happens when they got to verify? So they start checking on you going between Iowa and freaking Illinois, because they need to check your papers. We used to make fun of folks in the 80s for having to carry some papers, Russians and East Germans and crap. And now, look at us.
One step away.
We used to be beautiful, man. What the hell happened to us, man? We were freaking rock stars. And if we want to get back to good old-fashioned American values and hurting folks, we need a unifying voice to come together with the party. And in case we don't win this cycle, they also need to start libertarian youth groups, man. We need to be in high schools and colleges talking to these people and turning them around, because Democrats and Republicans are, and they're in the churches too, man. They're everywhere, and they're getting the wrong message out. Nobody even knows our name. So that was mine.
And I'm a build off of yours, because you kind of touched on it when you said Get the youth involved, right? So my suggestion is do exactly what Angela says she's good at doing. Eat shit and move on.
Move
Make the
on.
best out of the situation you're handed. Just the same as a lot of people that, maybe were upset that Trump got invited to the national convention. They made the best out of the situation they were handed, right? And we got a lot of attention for it. We can make the best out of the situation that we have now. Chase Oliver is a young candidate. He doesn't even look like the other candidates that are up on stage. He looks
By
about
50
40
years, like-
years younger. Yes.
And armed and gay.
America wants
yeah.
some fresh life into our government, because our government it's becoming a nursing home, and we all know it.
And he's
These are
more
the same
fiscally
people. Hold on.
responsible.
These are the same people that when we were kids and they were our age, they wanted to put people that are their age right now into homes and take their driver's license away from them.
And now they're running our country.
And now they're running our country, and they're calling us children. We're 40. We're over 40. We're not children. No. So I think make the best out of the situation. Reach out to the younger generation, because as much as we say that they're going to be, some of them are jaded, or they're still malleable. They're still young. There's still a future for them. And, it only takes like one awesome person to gather 10 more people. And those 10 people will be awesome people. They'll get 10 more people, each one of them. And that's how we're going to grow. But I think making the best out of the situation. If you don't like what's going on, shut up.
Go what you're on, man. You move on.
Just stay in your lane for a minute. If you don't like what's going on, as far as like, if you hate our candidates so much, just stay quiet. Like, even, okay, so I didn't start booing at the Trump rally until like everybody else did. Okay. Just saying. I was quiet. I
didn't stay for that.
Quiet. I did.
I bounced. I couldn't stand in line for 3 hours. Freaking that morning, I took a massive Biden and wiped my Trump. There's no way in the world I'm going to listen to that dude talk to me. You freaking loser. You want the 3%? Yeah, 3%, dude. Sit your old ass down. God, I can't stand that dude.
Different kind. Not the kind they were expecting welcoming committee.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I got right in. I went 2 minutes before you started. There was no line. I saw the metal detector in the Secret Service. I was like, great. They were real professional. Like, the TSA could take some lessons from them.
So did you get
Those were private security, by the way, not.
Did you get in the front at the beginning, or did you get set off to the side in the race?
Oh, I was probably the side then.
I was in the race too. I bet I elbowed you. Because I went from the back all the way to the front because I was getting my seat.
I just stood from the side. I wanted a picture. So, like, I'm with you. I can't stand Donald Trump, but I was one of the few that was really happy he was coming. But I'm a marketing person. To me, if you get the biggest billboard on the planet, you can't turn that down.
I hated it. And then thought about it. And then when I started hearing, because normally we get like 5, 10 media outlets coming to our conventions. There were several hundred this time. So I said, okay, I get it. And when Kennedy came to, I'm like, I get it. I just had this ugly feeling that half the folks there wanted Trump to come speak so he could win us over, because if we only heard him, we'd hear the truth. And I heard the truth. The man he speaks at a 4th grade level. I don't get it. He's Mr. Beast at 70 something.
That's him speaking to most of America. But
yeah.
Did you see Kennedy's speech?
How old did they be? How old would they be when they got out of office? These folks, like, so how old is
80,
Trump?
Right?
Okay.
But Trump's 78.
And RFK is like 76.
Yeah.
So I think he's 74, something like that.
Something.
I'll look it up and I'll post the numbers up on the screen.
Yeah.
But Kennedy's speech was brilliant.
I
his
loved it.
speechwriter should get a bonus. That
Good
person
point.
researched libertarians.
It was a great liberty speech, but when he was talking about the First Amendment, I'm the one who screamed out, Now do two-way, Bobby.
I heard that. That's awesome.
That was me. That was me.
All right, very cool.
So, and then I walked out because I liked his speech, but he was catering and kowtowing, and I loved his speech, and I actually learned so much from him about vaccines and a few other things. I would have him on my staff. I would not have him run my country because he is a big business, big government type, just like the rest. He just he just has a couple more freedom ideas.
I hate to be like the person that says the quiet part out loud, but I have a hard time following what he says.
Oh, with his voice.
Yeah. I
He goes
wasn't
off putting it
sure.
first.
I
got
wasn't
used
sure
to it.
even when he was done. I was surprised. I was like, whoa, everybody's clapping. Is it over? That's just me. I have a hard time understanding what he's saying. And when I can't understand the message, then it doesn't resonate as well with me. So I didn't have this experience that you guys did. But you know what? I'm an asshole. I'm a total awful person because I donated to his campaign way back. And it was because they had to win a trip to Hawaii if you donate. And I was like, fuck yeah.
More
And
than
not
that,
just
it's-
that,
Well,
but let me tell you why I
I
did.
signed the.
Hold on. The best part's coming. Why did I do this? Because I wanted to see the kind of letters he sends his donors. I want to see the kind of text messages because that's a good like starting point for me to see how other people are running it. If they're successful, I
the
want to know
stack,
success.
yeah.
And not only that, so now I'm on their list of like people text messaging me like daily of
Constant.
But I got even one of his text message people to donate to my campaign.
Oh wow,
Yes,
Nice.
that's awesome.
I thought
I'm
so.
stealing one of his Maryland guys, Colin, this really, really tall kid that was always at the Kennedy table at the convention. I'm completely stealing Colin, given half a chance. Like any chance I get, I'm gonna steal him away. So
Yeah, I just to circle back, make the best of it and focus on the principles. Focus on the issues. If we focus on the issues, we're going to win more people than if we focus on personalities.
and just
Especially
tell
the
the truth.
kitchen table issues,
Mhm.
Tell
economics.
the truth.
How do we help you pay your rent?
Mhm.
Like people want to
Why
argue
does
about
3
like
bags of groceries cost $125
exactly,
freaking dollars?
exactly. That's real to people, and people will give up liberty to rectify that. And I wouldn't, but I don't blame them. I get it. Like the belly fire is a powerful, powerful motivator. When your kids are hungry, you're not going to ask a lot of questions. Like it's hard to blame people for that. People are hurting and it sucks.
They do everything they try in the black neighborhoods, and I say stuff like this, and I don't mean to make it racial, but they did
No,
police brutality in the black
it's
neighborhoods
absolutely
until
racial.
brutality got freaking normalized. And then now it's happening in white neighborhoods, and white folks are killed actually more often. Per capita, blacks are worse, but they did the same thing with uh, the opioid epidemic. It was a crack epidemic back in the day, and then when it was fentanyl, and it scooched over. Now they're talking about welfare in other communities, only they're talking about it. They're saying it's universal basic income. And I'm like, dog, that is welfare. That is free money every month and that's the wrong direction. I don't know. We're already hitting hyperinflation, man. I don't know if we can take giving
we
everybody
have
money.
been.
We have been, yeah.
Since this
7,
is in
8
North
months ago,
Carolina,
we were spending $73,000 per second. Today it's 100,000, and nobody noticed that.
That's
And nobody's
outrageous.
going, "What are you people doing to me?"
Yeah, that's
And it irritates me.
so North
Sorry.
Carolina, I do want to say this because I did grow up in North Carolina, and if you knew me from North Carolina, you knew I was the poorest kid in school. I'm gonna just say that I was the dirty poor kid. Trailer park, okay. It wasn't even the trailer park. It was the shitty trailer outside the trailer park. Okay. And if you know, you know. So they had a hard time giving my mom welfare in North Carolina. They had a hard time giving my mom that was a waitress and a single mother of 3 kids, food stamps in North Carolina. And why? Because she smoked pot.
That's so ridiculous.
And you know who came through when we didn't have food? The church. You know who gave us Christmas when we didn't have anything? The church. The churches in North Carolina are what really save the people, and that's charity, and that's what the libertarian philosophy believes in. Is charity can do a lot better job helping the people on the ground without strings attached than the government.
About waste and inefficiency and bureaucracy. The amount I paid in taxes, I could have bought people houses in the last few years. It's ridiculous.
I told there's a guy in Baltimore, his name is Chris. His Twitter X handle is For My City Too. And he runs a food bank in Baltimore, and he gives away as much food as the Maryland Food Bank in his community, maybe more. And his budget was $500,000. He's got 5 employees, a ton of volunteers, and it's an awesome operation. The top 4 employees of the Maryland Food Bank, their combined salary is over $1 million. So for half the price of 2 Maryland Food Bank employees, this cat feeds his community because he decided to. We are not against charity. We are against government theft so that they can inefficiently give charity to folks. And most of it goes to places like Walmart. How much do Walmart employees and McDonald's employees cost us in welfare, SNAP, and government benefits? I'm not saying we need a better minimum wage. I'm saying y'all need to stop working for that low-ass wage and just quit. Stop giving them money. They will find work that is better, and stop subsidizing Walmart, which is a millions and millions of dollar profitable company. I don't get this stuff, man. It just
Getting rid
seems
of
logical.
the Federal Reserve and that money's worth more. So I will leave you with this. When you talk to Mike, a couple of things to ask about. So he's got 5 major planks that he's running on for North Carolina. The foundation of those planks is nullification. And so we're not going to let the federal government screw up North Carolina anymore. But you mentioned the charity thing, and the thing that got Mike active. So he's been political for a while, but really active and got him to do this. And he'll tell you the story, but quick rundown. There was a homeless veteran on a median. He accepted $1. The police did not like that because it's illegal to panhandle. They harassed him. They tased him. They tased his service dog. They arrested him. His service dog ran off. 3 days later, when he got out of jail, there's a video. It's like heartbreaking. He's like, please, I just want my dog back. She's all I have in the world. Turns out the dog was killed by a car returning to the scene because that's what she was trained to do. This is VA $10,000 trained service dog. This is not. 2 months later, WCNC requested the body camera footage because in North Carolina, the judge has to release it. Travis Page, and I was talking about him on last night too, I don't say bad things about many people. It's not worth my time. I hope Travis Page suffers horribly the rest of his life for a long time because he's just a bad person. He argued that the body camera footage should not be released because it would not allow Joshua, the veteran, to get a fair trial. So his argument was that the video of what happened would prevent a fair trial. We showed up, and this is how we got connected with Spike Cohen, because Spike was coming arguing for this. We showed up at the City of Gastonia council meetings and just railed about this for 8 months. Finally, they got Joshua to take a plea deal for some other charges for the thing, dropped it, and then the body camera footage gets released. And you watch it, and it's like, as horrible as we thought it was going to be, it was worse. Like, he handed them an ID. They were like, this doesn't have an address on it. Homeless, mind you, but it's his VA ID. Now he's going to get his other ID, and he's saying, this is expired, but I'll give it to you. And they just tase him. And then the cop goes, ow, she bit me. The dog is 6 feet away, like 6 feet away. And that's when he tased the dog. Neither of those cops got, anything.
Nothing.
And that's why we say end qualified immunity.
They at least need an ass whooping.
It gets worse. Pastor Moses Colbert, the Faith and Love Ministry in Gastonia, got a church. It's not the nicest church in the world because he has breakfast, lunch, and dinner and allows everyone who doesn't have a place to live or eat to come, and he funds all of it. So they put up their tents there. They have facilities and a shower, and they get fed. For 3 years, not a single person had died, a homeless person had died in Gastonia, staying with Pastor Moses. Joshua was one of the people who went to Pastor Moses. Pastor Moses spoke out about what the police did. Coincidentally, 3 weeks later, roughly, they raided his church for fire safety violations for the people there. kicked everyone out. In the next 5 months or whatever it was when it was cold, something like 33 people died of exposure on the streets. Meanwhile, Gastonia racked up fines for him for $100,000. So that's what they charged him for, feeding the homeless as a minister. Like, no matter how much you hate the government, it's not enough. It's not enough.
You made me hate them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole story made me just, oh God, it made me a little angry.
I'm giving you like the highlights. Ask Mike about it.
No,
It gets harrowing. And the things they did, we did
dude,
get the police social media manager fired for arguing with us. It's kind of funny.
I'm from the south side of Chicago. They literally had black sites they take you to and beat the crap out of you to help loosen you up for, you know, your confession. I am not surprised. I'm just horrified by man's inhumanity to man.
Yeah.
We got to
I'm
be
gonna say
better, y'all.
something. I'm gonna say something, you guys, that some people are gonna find really offensive.
I don't get offended.
It is not illegal to be poor.
Shouldn't be.
It is not a sin to be poor. It's a bad it's a bad life. But you shouldn't be imprisoned. You should not be murdered. You should not be treated any kind of unfairly, unjustly way just because you're poor.
Shouldn't be illegal to be poor.
Shouldn't be. Again, south side of Chicago. Felt illegal to be poor.
You came up, and that's the thing.
I got lucky. My dad picked me up when I was 12 and took me down to Florida. And then at 18, I joined the military because my dad was military. So I was military. And, you know, I got lucky. I had some fun. I made some good decisions, a lot of bad ones. But if not for the grace of God, there go I. So I still feel for folks because I still got family in that situation that you try to help up. I still got friends in that situation you try to help up. And it sucks, man.
So I lived overseas for a couple of years, Hong Kong, but we traveled a bunch of China. And I also grew up very poor. Coming back and having that as my background from my experience, I love this country. Like, I love this country. I love the ideals that this country is founded on. And I get so irritated at, now, I hate the government. Like, I hate the government. The government is not the country. There is no, in fact, the government is the antithesis of what our country is supposed to be. But I found that you're both ex-military. People coming from the military sort of appreciate liberty and what we have here and the ideals on which it's founded, because you see what it looks like. It's not, you can go somewhere third world or authoritarian for a week and it's a little weird on a vacation. When you live there, you're stationed there for a long time, and it's like, don't say this word in this place. In China, it was like, Tiananmen wasn't so bad then, but do not say Falun Gong. Like, you will go to jail. If someone hears you, you'll disappear and you might not come back. Falun Gong was a big deal when I was there.
Wow.
Don't get caught drinking. Like, do not, or I mean,
when I lived in the UAE, if you talked bad about one of the sheikhs, what was the line? They would show you what's behind the sun. You were free up until a point, and a lot of times you got to go searching for that point. But everywhere I've been, there was a point you don't cross, or you go to the, you go down.
And that's why we're doing this. I promise you, everyone listening, like, what we have is great. Let's fight to keep it. Feena Bonoan and Mike Scott. Last thing, Feena first. What do you want to plug? I'll put all it up on the screen too and in the comments. But
okay, I've got a lot of websites.
Send them all.
Find me on the internet. Google me. I'm easy to Google. Promise you, I'm the only Feena Bonoan. But I have FeenaForUs.com. I have FeenaBonoan.com, Feena.Senate.com. I am on Twitter as Feena. I'm on Facebook as Feena. I'm on Instagram as Feena. Find me on the Wayback if you want to. Ballotpedia, all this crap. It's out there. Find me on the internet. And watch the campaign update on Tuesdays and Mondays.
Campaign update. And we're going to see you next Tuesday. I'm Mike Scott. I am Mike Scott all over. It's Mike Scott, the #1 word on Twitter and YouTube. And Mike Scott, all caps, on Facebook. And what is that one? Instagram. My social media presence is anemic because I loathe it. My website is mikescott2024.com, or you can go to lifeinallcaps.com. It'll send you to me because that's also mine.
That's awesome. Like I said, it'll all be up on the screen. Thank you both so much. And thank you for not just your service before, but for your service now, for what you're doing, for fighting for liberty.
Hey, man,
We
thank you
need
for running
everyone.
and thanks for having us on, man. That
Oh,
rocks.
my pleasure.
We're gonna have you on our show soon.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Talk to y'all very soon.
Cross-Pollination.
Hey, what's up, Liberty fam? Back again for another fantastic episode of Liberty Inc. In season 4, we are always bringing you the most exciting and interesting guests, trying to show all perspectives. And I've invited a couple of Republicans on the show, and they have graciously agreed to come. And we want to talk about areas where we agree, areas where we disagree. For all of my longtime dedicated followers, you know I've had people of many political stripes on, and we tend to have some really interesting conversations. So thank you both for coming on. First of all, Leigh Thomas Brown, a notorious realtor who does not live too far from me. I'm in Charlotte, just across the way. Also a 3-time candidate, very active in the Republican Party. How's it going today, Leigh?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Excited to get into this discussion. And then we have John Warren. First of all, John, I want to say thank you for your service. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, we forget how much that matters. And I make a point to thank all of our veterans and people in the armed services, because you're out there defending the liberty that I'm trying to fight for here. So thank you for your service. John is, I was trying to think of a way to summarize what you do without offending you, but I'm just going to have to risk it. You're a Republican influencer.
Oof. All right, I'll take it.
He chums for trolls on the internet. I mean, he successfully chums every day and picks them up.
Oh, I'm well aware, but it's not like fluff. Like, you sent me that thing from the Mises Institute. That's a Libertarian Institute. The Mises Club Carolinas is associated with the Mises Institute. I read and follow a lot of stuff from the Mises Institute. I had not seen that. I absolutely loved it. Our governor candidate, Mike Ross, the central pillar, I guess, of his strategy. So his strategy is very much to strip the government way back, but nullification is his intention. And listening to that, I mean, we can get into this more, but I did not realize just how much the founders, I mean, even the Federalists were like, no, nullification has to be part of this. They saw this as sort of individually run states that were governed by the Constitution, and that was it. That was the extent of the federal government's involvement. And now we end up with, 36, approaching $37 trillion in debt, wars on 18 different fronts, just more and more spending, writing people checks for existing. How did we get here?
That is a very good question. And I don't think our forefathers and founders could envision where we are at today. And I think some of their mistakes is they left it like a blank canvas. So when our Constitution was written, I think in their minds was, all right, we've wrote it, here it is. We're going to add the 10th Amendment to the Bill of Rights. So everything else is now up to the states. And ever since then, it just has grown and grown and grown. And it's very fascinating. We look at like Jefferson and the Jefferson Republicans in 1798 in the early 1800s and how they pushed back against a lot of the Federalists at the time. Hey, no, the original intent of the Constitution is that the states had the power. The states gave birth to the Constitution, and we can take that power away if we want to. And so the first big crisis that is in 1832 with South Carolina, and the nullification crisis of 1832, 1833. And I just did a thread on that. So if y'all are interested in that, y'all can check that out. But the vice president was from South Carolina, and he believed in that. So he pushed that. So there was a deal that was made that was cut between the Federalists and the states' rights folks. And something that was interesting that came out of that was the force So Andrew Jackson at the time, part of cutting that deal was, hey, Congress is going to pass a law that allows the president to authorize military force against the states in order to enforce federal laws. And so a lot of states pushed back against that, but that was the deal that was made at the time. And so when you fast forward to the Civil War, you know, it's about slavery, it was about states' rights, and it just kind of kept progressing at that point. And you could really say the end of states' rights almost stopped at the end of the Civil War, because federalism won at the time. There was a war that was fought, the South lost, states' rights, no. Federalism is now the supremacy of the land. And so then you have two other big, great leaps after that. Is you have the FDR, the Great Society, the massive expansionism of government during that time. And then here we are today, just federalism is everywhere. It touches every little branch. It touches all of us in our society. And so I saw a meme the other day, you know, our founding fathers rebelled at 2% tax, and here we are today, and 40% of our income tax is being taxed. It's like, where are we, folks? How did we get here? This is not where we envisioned to be today.
All right, so now you all have a sense of the sort of discussion we're looking at. Definitely my favorite type of discussion. So, Leigh and John, I have a question for you that I like to pose to my non-libertarian guests early on, to kind of get a sense of I guess how to frame the conversation. But when I say libertarian, what does that mean to you all? Like, what's a libertarian in your mind?
Well, for me right now it means Javier Milei. So I'm as close to moving towards the libertarian side as I've ever been, because
Of that.
I mean, we finally see somebody who's willing to do something with the spine that they have. So to me, a libertarian is traditional small government, and maybe too much of the let everybody do what they want to do. So I don't know. I see it's a mix.
John?
Yeah, for me, there's two sides to the coin on it. I see who the Libertarians just elected as their presidential nominee, Oliver Chase, and I see his platform. I see some of the stuff that he's posted, and I don't think it's very libertarian.
Right.
Well, maybe it is in some people's mind it is, and so I don't like where some libertarians take the idea of liberty and they just say, hey, liberty means I can do whatever I want and there should be no repercussions. No one can tell me what to do. If I want to go diddle little kids, I can go diddle little kids. If I can get a little kid, little diddle me.
I mean, but maybe you could answer that question, because the presidential candidate you have is a super duper mask wearer and super duper COVID shot guy. How in the world does that fit in with the Libertarian Party when you are pushing mandates? It doesn't add up to me. So I'm curious as to, you could explain that better for me.
Sure. So actually, I know Chase well. He's one of the most dedicated liberty warriors I know. And I think there's a lot of misconception out there about what he said. So I disagree with Chase strongly on everything in terms of the science behind COVID. In fact, the thing that has propelled my activism more than anything was the COVID tyranny, the COVID lockdowns, the vaccine, the science behind it, the amount of money that's just being thrown, and watching people I know get vaccine injured. Chase has been very clear that he is 100% opposed to any sort of mandate whatsoever. Mask mandate, vaccine mandate, that should be up to the individual, the private business, between a person and their doctor. Where I differ with him a bit is I feel like he does not acknowledge enough the extent to which money influenced that decision. So when we're talking about, $200 billion roughly just of our money, our stolen money for the vaccine, for people to get this shot, that we can't sue theoretically
exactly.
for, although
consent, no protections.
Yeah.
So look, that's what we have in common, because I'm pissed off at the Republicans because they backed all these fake vaccines and mask mandates too. And I still think everybody in Congress took a damn saline shot because they had all the data. I think they just used us as guinea pigs and protected themselves. It's my theory.
Well, except Thomas Massie, I'm convinced he didn't get a shot. He's my favorite
Oh, he's
person
my
in
favorite
Congress.
too. I
And
love
it's
him.
not even close. But he's a libertarian. He's wrong on the Jones Act, and he's right on everything else.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, he really is. I got to meet him at our convention, chatted with him a little while because he knows DeSantis, and there's a guy, Crosley Green, who is in jail really, really unjustly and has been for a long time. So I've been trying to find a way to get Ron DeSantis to take a look and hopefully pardon. But so I guess libertarians do disavow almost any government. We have full-blooded anarcho-capitalists like Javier Milei, who would eliminate the state entirely. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you sort of have your classical liberals leaning to the left philosophically, and your constitutional conservatives leaning to the right philosophically. Anything beyond that, and you're starting to get to Republican Democrat territory. I would consider, I mean, if we must label things, I'm a Gen X, so I'm so anti-label. It's just natural to us. Like, it's weird how everything has to have a label now, but
Nobody cared who we are, Rob. Nobody cared. We were Gen Xers. We're
yeah.
your generation.
It was a fun time though.
I don't think we shouldn't be putting anybody in a box, right?
No,
like
ever.
You should be able to talk to someone, have a conversation, agree with them here, agree with them there, and not put them in a box and say, hey, this is your label, that's what you are entirely.
But that's where the
100%.
parties have gone sideways, because they demand that purity from their candidates. You're not allowed to disagree with anything in the party, or you must be destroyed. And they've created their own candidate problems, and it bleeds over into the electorate.
Which party is this?
All of them. I mean, look at the
Okay.
Democrats. That you can't find a pro-life Democrat anymore because they'd be burned at the stake. And on the the Republican side doesn't know who they are when it comes to that particular topic. But when you look at the budget, I mean, they say they're small government and they spend as wildly as Democrats do. And if you don't agree with their spending, then you must be destroyed. Like this Ukraine thing, which I think is just an abomination. But because I disagree with the Republican Party voting to give money to a war we have no business being involved in, I don't belong in the party then. Purity test is bad.
So purity tests are something that plague the libertarians as well. We get a lot more of "you're not a real libertarian." So I know they have Rhino Republican in name only, but I guess for me, the big difference, and this is my biggest critique of both parties. For us, it's principle over party. So "you're not a real libertarian" means you are abandoning the principles of libertarianism. And it's funny, and it's not funny. It's the reason we don't succeed more in electoral politics, because we get so caught up in that purity test when we agree on like 95% of everything. And then this like 5%, and we'd rather argue about that. With Republicans and Democrats, like we joke that if Republicans did what they said they were going to do, there'd probably not be a libertarian party. Like Republicans campaign as libertarians and govern as Democrats.
You're 1,000% right. That's quotable. Quote tweet that. That's good and true and
But
sad.
then how do you keep supporting them?
Because if I'm looking at the game that I'm playing, the pathway to winning in the current state is one of the two primary parties, and the Republicans align more with me than the absolute insanity of the current Democratic Party. Even though I am a person, I'm watching what's happening with Nigel Farage over in the UK. If the Tories finally get wiped out because the people do create something new, I will be over in the something new crowd, because I identify with the Republicans, even though I'm really a conservative, and I don't think most of our Republicans are conservatives right now, but it's the closest alignment I have.
John, you look like you're about to chime in.
Yeah, no, this is a great I was just having a conversation with someone about that, another Republican, and he came to your debate, Leigh, where we saw the 6 of y'all up there. And so there was like Mark Meadows, there was that, I can't remember his name, but there were several people up there. And it was shocking that when the votes came in and the primary was done, the 2 people that performed the worst got the 2 most votes. And so you look at everybody else and you're like, wow, these 3 other people were way better, could articulate themselves better. They resonated with us, but because of either money, I would say money plays a big role in it, they did not get the votes. And so I think people don't particularly pay attention to primaries either. And I think that's really unfortunate when you look at like primary numbers of how many people are out voting in those versus when it comes to that same seat in the general election, it is like 1%. And so you have people who are getting elected in the primary to go face a Democrat, and they're only getting elected by 1% of their constituents. And so I think if more people were to pay attention, and I think there were more debates, and if that could happen, I think that'd be much better. And that kind of leads into kind of getting rid of the 1929 apportionment, the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929, to where district sizes could be a lot smaller. Because go back to our founding fathers, they intended the ratio for constituents to representative to be about 1 to 35,000. Right now, it's like 1 to 900,000. And can one person truly represent a community of 900,000 people? Is a community 900,000 people? And I don't think it is. So I think if you were to bring that down bring it up from 435 to at a minimum like 1,600, you can get money more out of the politics. Or I would say the money would still be there, but the money would be much more diluted, and you would see your neighbor down the street running because your district's only going to be 4 square miles by 4 square miles versus it covering multiple counties, and you just don't know who that person is.
I think it's a good idea. I would 100% support it. I support term limits. I used to support ranked choice voting. I'm really sort of coming into this preference voting the more I think about it and look into it. But anything to just break the duopoly for me.
Right.
But ultimately, I don't think any of it will work in the long term. I think we just need to take the power back. Like we have given up so much of our power and our agency, and willingly we've handed it over. I mean,
so how do you get power? How do you get the power back from the people who have the power and are writing the laws and creating the laws and who have the money? I think that's where the friction is.
Well, without a doubt. And one way is to not support the uniparty, the Republicans and the Democrats. So you talk about open debate. I'm assuming you're both supporting Mark Robinson.
I am.
So we had a pre-primary debate. The Forward Party of North Carolina hosted it. We had the 2 Libertarians who were in the primary. We had Democrat Supreme Court Justice Mike Morgan. We had Republican, very popular auditor Dale Folwell. And we had Wayne Turner from the Green Party. Josh Stein and Mark Robinson didn't even respond, because why should they? They have the money, they have the support, they have the party's backing. They don't want to interview with the people for the job they're going to do. And now that they've both started spending money on ads, all I see are attack ads. They're just going after each other, just driving people apart further. But I'll be honest with you, except that Mark Robinson seems to be pro-life and Josh Stein is really big on not being pro-life, I have no idea what either of their other policies actually are. I just know how much they hate each other.
I'll tell you, I was a Dale Folwell fan too. He had my vote. He had my support because of what you said right there. He was everywhere, shaking every hand, doing his best to get to know the grassroots. And that is valuable to me. Plus his experience, I think, is more CEO experience. That being said, he didn't have the charisma to carry the popular vote. And I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. So I'm going to support Mark because he's more aligned with me than Stein is. And the thing I like most about Mark is Yolanda. I love his wife. I've spent more time with her than with Mark because she is more of the conversational type, and I really enjoy her. And I think that speaks well of him, that he has a great wife. There's always a factor there that should always be considered. And I also looked at the way Stein, well, I'm always going to look at real estate. I have to. I'm a 24-year realtor. I look at property rights. We're the 5th biggest piece of GDP. We get no airtime when it comes to topics. Stein won't even talk to the realtors. He hates real estate. He won't talk to our state realtor CEO, and we're the largest trade association in the state. We don't know why he hates us. We've asked. We can't figure that out. So he is actually antagonistic to property rights and real estate, which you go back to the founding. That was one of the primary things that was talked about in the Federalist Papers and in the documents to create this country. Everybody should have a chance to own something. And of course, the everything had to evolve to include, whatever your skin tone is and what gender you are. But they were working off the context of the time. That was wild and different. It's ignored completely in retail politics, and it's in the center of so many conversations. So I can't support him because he'll put me out of business and he'll keep my neighbor from buying a house. So I have to go with the one that's more aligned with me, even though Mark doesn't have a lot of policy background on real estate. He's willing to talk to me so I can educate him on what we're faced with right now, just like I have to educate our legislators. And I'm currently beating my head against a wall over the squatter bill because that should have been an easy get. Somebody can't take your house from you, and they're arguing over it because the sheriffs don't want to take a criminal squatter out of a house. And so it's nonstop education. So the long answer to your question is, if we don't know what his policies are, those of us that have expertise should be willing to reach out and educate if they're willing to be educated. He has shown a willingness to listen and be educated, and I value that. Stein won't return phone calls.
Yeah, and I like Mark Robinson.
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
No, after you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like Mark Robinson. There's two reasons. He went viral with his video in Greensboro about the Second Amendment. He loves the Second Amendment. I would love for the first piece of legislation for him to sign with the supermajority Republicans and him is a constitutional carry, no permits whatsoever to carry in North Carolina. I think that would be great. I think Andy Stevens has done a good job leading that charge. And I think that's something Republicans could pick up on and continue to carry to the end zone, so to say. Another thing I really liked about what Mark Robinson did is when he became lieutenant governor, he put out a massive report and allowed teachers in schools to report anything that was suspect that was going on, whether it was Black Lives Matters flags in schoolrooms or LGBTQ flags in schoolrooms, if there was any type of harassment, all this stuff that teachers were allowed to give their 2 cents and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing in my school. Hey, this is what I'm seeing in my school. And I think because of that, well, partly because of that, that's where you have the parents, the parental bill of rights that passes. That way parents want to be involved in their kids' school. I don't know how, my parents weren't not so much. And I think maybe that's a generational thing, but I think nowadays parents just really want to be involved in their kids' schools. And I just got it's fascinating. I just got my daughter, she got a reading list. It's called Battle of the Books for the summer. So she had these 10 books to read.
Grade. It's awesome. They're still around.
It's great. And I totally encourage children to read as much. I love reading. My kids see me reading books all the time. And so they love reading books. My daughter's reading all the time. And so I was like, yeah, sure. Bring your piece of paper. Let me look at these books and see if I recognize any. And so one of them on there was called Ban This Book. And I was like, well, that's interesting sounding. And so then I Googled it and it comes up. There's a locker. It's open and it has a stack of books. And of course, the stack of books is painted the color rainbow. And I'm like, okay, this seems a little odd. And so then I start researching a little bit more. One book what the book is about is a middle schooler, 6th, 7th grader, goes to the school library one day and finds that a bunch of books are banned that she liked. And so she comes back to her locker and decides, well, hey, I don't want parents telling me what books I can read or cannot read. Sounds familiar, right? Like Moms for Liberty groups. And so she decides to get these books and then turn her locker room into her own banned book library. But what's important about this is that in that book, Ban This Book, one of those books that is referenced in that book is called It's Perfectly Normal. And so when you then look at what's in Perfectly Normal, there is, my daughter is in 3rd grade. She's going into 4th grade next year. You have pictures of gay sex and heterosexual sex and adults masturbating. And I was like, whoa, I was like, this is not appropriate for my daughter to be at all looking at in 3rd and 4th grade. maybe later on down the road. And I would like to have that conversation with my daughter first, me and my wife. And so luckily, before I could let like my emotions take charge of this, I decided to contact to my local Moms for Liberty group here in the county I live in, and they took it, ran with it, and there's a lot of things happening with that. Well, hopefully that book is now off the list for elementary school, because to me that book is completely inappropriate at the 3rd and 4th grade level. Maybe for the middle school, maybe for high school, but at the elementary school, absolutely inappropriate.
A lot to unpack across both those answers. Let's start with education. To me, Republicans cede just as much authority on education as Democrats. It's just a different version of what we're going to put. Now, personally, I would probably prefer my kids to go to a school that aligns with what Republicans would imagine a good school is. I'm always going to be skeptical of some of the unbridled patriotism. And it's actually because I love this country, but I lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years. I've seen what communism is like. I've seen what China is like. Like, it's important that we be allowed to burn the flag. It's important that we be allowed to say things against our country. And it's also an opportunity to explain to someone why we're a great country. So we're probably going to disagree. Like, if someone wants to kneel for the national anthem, if someone tells them not to, I will kneel for the national anthem. And I stand for every national anthem out of respect, but like, freedom of speech is so important. And I feel like Republicans give up a little bit of that. But so our governor candidate, Mike Ross, he has a free market education plan. And when you break it all down, we spend it's like $12,900, $13,000 a student in North Carolina, something like that. And his plan is this: create a central bank, give every parent a debit card for their child, and say you have to spend this on education, and then that's it. Get the government out of it completely. Other than that, we've had discussions about, because lottery money is supposed to go to education. So maybe if you have like some math and reading standards that kids hit, that money could be distributed as a bonus. The lottery money in education is such a joke because it does go to education, but then it's used to offset. Like, they'll pull education money and give it to other things and then replace it with lottery money. But if the government can tell you that you cannot have a pride flag in your classroom, then the government can also tell you you can have a pride flag in your classroom. And so we come from the perspective very much of any authority you give up, any right you cede, and the government takes as an authority, assume that the person you disagree with will use it to its worst possible factor. And we have seen this time and again. And that's why we say the uniparty. We see culture wars being stirred up to divide people who have so much more in common. Like standing next to your Democrat neighbor, you have way more in common with that person than anyone who's on Capitol Hill. You both want
my Democrat neighbor can grill a hamburger without putting cheese on it.
Did you see that? What? Who?
It was the moves. I couldn't see past the moves. It was awful. And his dead evil stare. That was a demonic stare in his face.
Yeah, that was a little. I'm not a Schumer fan. I've been in comms and marketing for almost 25 years now, and like, someone should be fired for that.
You know, it's funny, the same people that ran Cal Cunningham's campaign, they just hired the same people, because the consultants are the biggest problem with money in politics, because they get a piece of the action on all these ads. And so they have a built-in incentive to run as much crap as they can to get as many clicks as they can. That's a different topic. But let me ask you a libertarian question then. Because to John's point, the book shouldn't be recommended. So nowhere did he say burn that book, but it shouldn't be on a recommended list for 3rd graders. Can the libertarians agree that you shouldn't promote those things when, if the kid was reading it because their parent got it for them, which is the whole thing that keeps getting misconstrued on the Moms for Liberty thing. The Moms for Liberty, and I'm one, we don't want those books
I'm a member too.
Promoted to the kids. And every time we've been asked is, if the parent wants to give that book to their kid, I think it's pretty disgusting and awful, but that's the parent can do that with their kid. It shouldn't be promoted from the school system. And so I do think that there have to be some kind of guardrails that say, we're not going to promote this stuff. If you do it at home, that's on your own time, but this is not a facility for that.
So in the current context, we would support anything that says parental rights. We liked the parental rights bill. Parents should be able to opt out. They should know everything that their schools are teaching.
Right.
I would reject the premise of the question. I don't believe in the school system. Like, I would get rid of
And
public
we agree on that. DPI should be destroyed because that's where all the money goes. And the money, if you
100%.
ever want to go down
Instantly.
a rabbit hole, have you gone down the Pearson educational rabbit hole?
A little bit. Do you know who Deb Philman is?
I don't know, Deb.
She's
Yeah, I
worth
know
checking
Deb.
out.
Yeah.
She might know more about sort of school choice and government involvement in schools than anyone I know. She's also Moms. I mean, I'm in Moms for Liberty, but I don't know if she's in, but she's affiliated. She's Libertarian, but she has a podcast. She goes after some of the nonsense with education, and she has talked some through the Pearson rabbit hole, as you put it. I don't pretend to be an expert on education systems, because for me, our daughter and our son both went to a school. I'm going to brag a little bit here, but for highly gifted students. While my daughter was there, things were really good. She goes to a Catholic high school now. For my son, we had some struggles. We homeschool now. We've been homeschooling for a year. He's gone through 2 grades. He's reading at a college level. He's doing fractions, and he does 2 hours a day. And then we do like science projects and play football. What's absurd to me is the amount of money that I pay in taxes to go to a failing education system.
Well, but the
So-
money's going to Pearson Educational. So when I ran for House in 2015 for North Carolina House, because my kid was throwing up on the way to go take the stupid standardized end of grade test. And that's when I fell down the rabbit hole of, holy shit, they own all these educational tools. They own the standardized testing. They own ABC YA and 1, 2, 3, all the different little programs they're gamifying for the kids. It's all owned by Pearson. And so you start realizing that they've got the bulk of this money that you're talking about, that DPI is spending, it's going to one corporate crony, which to me is a complete disaster. So you're 100% right. See, we agree on that. Burn down DPI, burn down the Department of Education. That's the first letter agency to go. Send the money back to the classrooms, whether the parents take it or not, let the teachers have it. If you took standardized testing and the administration out of the way, we would have an entirely different looking result for our kids, because their results are horrid right now.
Well, imagine how, like, we talk about teacher pay, and it's such a silly discussion because first of all, most average teachers are probably underpaid. Good teachers are definitely underpaid, and bad teachers are way overpaid. If we so forget school choice. This is not public schools we're choosing. This is literally, you have money to spend on education. You would see a lot of really good teachers with micro schools taking 10 students, making $100,000 a year, doing really well. But it's like there's no centralized power structure that we're ever going to support. We are skeptical of the Department of Education. We love our soldiers and we want to bring them home. We would get rid of the military outside of the United States. There's split. So I do believe in public policing, public safety, and jails, because I think private prison systems incentivize really bad things. But we're really, really skeptical of cops, like really skeptical of cops. And you see things like that guy getting shot up in Cherokee for having a flashlight, or the guy getting tased to death for smoking pot in his car in Raleigh, or Jada Johnson, 22 years old, got shot 17 times in the back, or Joshua Rohrer in Gastonia. We fought for 7 months and they won't release body camera footage. In the Joshua Rohrer case, WCNC petitioned to have the body camera footage released. And Travis Page, who's just not a good person, and I hope you're listening, Travis, he's the DA in Gastonia, and he argued that if the video was released, so the video of what happened, it would make it impossible for Joshua to get a fair trial. So his argument was that the video of what happened would make it impossible to get a fair trial. Like, I don't get that at all. So then we fought for 7 months in Gastonia. Finally, Joshua accepted. He pleaded to 2 other misdemeanors. And this is an Iraq war vet who's homeless on the side of the street, messed up, had drug problems. He acknowledges them. He's been sober for 6 years now, but messed up. He went to war. I mean, he was on the ground in Iraq, and war is the worst thing there is. There's this MASH quote, and I'm gonna mess it up, but I paraphrase, but I love it because it says, "War is hell," and the doctor says, "Do you believe," to the priest, "do you believe only bad people go to hell?" And the priest says, "Well, yes, of course." And he says, "Well, war is much worse because it's the innocents that get hurt. It's the children, the civilians, all the people around. So war is way worse than hell." So here's Joshua, all messed up. Somebody hands him $1, is sitting in a median, $1, and 2 cops roll up, immediately just harassing him, aggressive, positioning themselves, ask for his ID. They know who he is. There's 4 days before, the same cops had an interaction with him. So he pulls out his VA ID, and they said, "This doesn't have an address." Homeless again, but he says, "I can get you my North Carolina one, but it's expired." And then they tase him, just take him down. There's like 38 cops there to bring in this dangerous homeless guy. So he's in jail for 3 days. They also tased his dog because they said that it bit him. On the video, the dog's 6 feet away. This cop just lied. I mean, straight out lied. But, "Oh, he bit me," and then tased this service dog, this $10,000 training Belgian Malinois. So he gets out of jail 3 days later, and unbeknownst to him, so the cops just gave the dog to a friend. The dog gets back, gets away, it escapes. Sunshine. And she goes back to the spot where she had last seen Joshua because that's what she was trained to do, and she got hit by a car. So Joshua gets out of jail 3 days later, and there's a video of him just like, "Please, I need Sunshine. Like, she's the only thing I have in the whole world." When he found out she was dead, he attempted to take his own life. The cops stonewalled for 7 months. The whole city of Gastonia got behind it. They were picking fights with people on social media. And in fact, the social media person for the Gastonia police did get fired eventually for picking these fights. But these are just these are criminal people. To me, once you cross that line, once you break the law, I don't care about a uniform and a badge, you're a criminal now. But I do
And I
see
agree, but it
Republicans
doesn't mean
love.
you dismantle public safety, but we should absolutely hold people to account. Body cams are great. So then why is it that when Tim Scott proposed that in the Senate, it was completely shut down to spend the money on body cams to give a more fair outcome? But we also have a corrupt legal system. So there's so many layers in what you said there that all pile up on the one citizen who should have been, he should have been treated completely differently. But the cops needed to be punished for their treatment. The DAs are elected. The public needs to elect better DAs. You got to.
I think Travis Page was assigned. I think someone retired.
Uh,
I don't mean to interrupt.
but I get what you're saying. Like there's bad eggs, but like again, my lens is always going to be real estate. The DOJ is trying to destroy realtors because they say there's a few bad realtors out there. You don't dismantle an entire system because there are some people out there that don't behave well. You handle those people. It's the same way we treat our kids. If your kids misbehave, you handle the kid who misbehaved. You don't punish everybody around them.
Sure, without a doubt. But there's no group in the country that is more resistant to accountability than the police.
The Democrats are more resistant to accountability, so I would
Well,
tell you that.
sure, the government. But the police are the street soldiers of the government. There's another case, Jada Johnson, 2017 in Fayetteville. So when she was 15, she was raped, and she called the police for help, and they just didn't want to deal with her. Shut it down, said it was made up. I forget exactly what they did, something horrible. So for the next 7 years, she calls the police all the time. She's clearly PTSD, mental breaks, freaking out. Finally, she's 22, so it's 7 years later, and her grandparents call and say she's living with her grandparents. She's out here brandishing a gun. She's having a mental break. So they show up. She's brandishing a gun, to be fair, and no one knows what happened because there's no body camera footage, but they got the gun from her. They got her to lay down on her stomach, and then they shot her in the back 17 times. But they cleared themselves of all wrongdoing. But I mean, Republicans are very much thin blue line. So it's probably my biggest point of contention with Republicans, like small government, small government, small government, until it's the people. So you made the connection or the comparison with realtors. Yes, you should not tear down a system for a few bad apples, without a doubt. But you need accountability. The police system, they can take away your life and liberty, and the state backs them in doing it. The state is the monopoly on violence, and they are monopolizing violence. Realtors aren't monopolizing violence against people.
Well, according to the DOJ, we are. But so to your point,
I don't like the DOJ either. So
that's the second. I want to dismantle the DOE. That's easier. DOJ's got to go. The DOE is only back to the Carter era, so it's easy enough to get rid of it. So you're talking about qualified immunity. And the problem, and I go back and forth on this because I understand there are some cops who don't deserve immunity. And I get that. But if you take it away, then it's open season. So I look at Derek Chauvin. I mean, the situation that happened in Minneapolis, now that the coroner's reports have come out, the toxicology reports have come out, it's pretty clear that no matter what happened there, George Floyd died of the drugs in his system. And
sure, a heart attack from the drugs.
It's awful. I feel for his family. I hate that that's a lost soul. But Derek Chauvin was always going to be found guilty because that jury was under so much pressure. Because they had no choice but to find him guilty because of the pressure cooker that had been created. If you remove qualified immunity, I think you see more pressure cookers created where no cop is ever given due process again. And but this goes to the heart of how due process has been corrupted and the legal system has been corrupted. So it's all multi-layered. But again, I don't think anybody would go into policing if they did not have qualified immunity.
So
in Charlotte, look at the cops who swarmed in on that really weird situation a few weeks ago where they walked into that.
Where they were trying to arrest someone for a victimless crime. I wrote an article on this. Victimless crimes create victims.
So there's more to that we don't know. Do you follow Charlotte on Instagram?
I do. And I wrote an entire article. I did a deep dive on this.
Did you talk to Rissa Rain?
He had been to jail.
There's more to it though. Rissa Rain, who is part of Charlotte, she lives in that area. She was doing some on the ground reporting of her own. And the house next door burned down. That was never mentioned in the media. Why did the house Jimmy's house, why did it burn? She went inside the house where the shooting, there's so much more going on there that hasn't hit the light of day yet. But I see that and I look at those officers and they went where they were called to go because they thought it was for the best for the community. And then they get slaughtered in the process and it happens and they know they sign up for that. It's not clean. It's not easy. And I think wiping out the public safety aspect leaves more people at risk. And even constitutional carry doesn't solve that because I carry, but I don't want to have to take somebody out. I'd much rather there's a trained officer there to help me if shit goes down.
Sure. So there's more layers to this. And John, I'd love for you to chime in on this because you strike me as very liberty oriented in everything you do. I would get rid of victimless crimes. I would make all drugs legal. Constitutional carry wouldn't even be a thing because you could just have a gun. They went to serve a warrant on that guy for possessing a firearm as a felon for drug charges. If those things weren't crimes, then
it won't make him a good guy. He's not going to go to church and look after his grandma. He's still going to shoot somebody up.
Well, I don't know if he's going to shoot somebody up. Certainly those cops will still be alive and he'd still be alive too. And I'm not making the case where he's a good guy, but you can't legislate morality.
I would disagree with that. I think you most definitely can. I would not allow drugs to be legal, whether it's heroin, cocaine. I can hear arguments about medical marijuana for veterans and for cancer patients. I can get behind that. But just unfiltered drugs pouring all over to where people could have availability to them, I don't think that's very good. And this guy, I try to look at all the effects, like that gentleman we're talking about in Charlotte. He had a rap sheet 30 pages long. And so you look at, and it's already against the law for for a convicted felon to have a firearm. Now, I disagree with that. I think personally that if you're convicted of a crime, once you go to jail, you're done going to jail, you're done serving your probation because you got out early, what have you, all your rights should be restored at that time. And so but the problem is, with this person, and like a lot of people that you see that are making the news, is that they've been arrested 10, 12 times for all sorts of different things. And so at some point, you have to decide, well, and that's up to the DAs, right? So you have liberal DAs, more, conservative DAs that are not afraid to put people behind bars that need to be behind bars. There are career criminals out there that need to be behind bars and not be given a 12th, 13th, 14th chance. So I think if you could rein that in, I think maybe you could have an argument at that point for that. But right now, that's not the way it works. And so for cops to have qualified immunity, I think they should have it. However, there has to be the accountability. And I think I probably agree with some of the Democrats on the other side of the aisle on this, surprisingly, but I'm okay with having some folks that are not trained police officers, but maybe they're trained psych docs or trained social workers, that when the 911 call comes in and it's someone, oh, my boyfriend's beating me or my husband's beating me, maybe you do send a cop out there with a social worker, and the social worker is the one that's initiating the door knock. The social worker or the psych person, they're the ones initiating the conversation, and the cops kind of like in the background to make sure things don't get out of hand, because most of the time they don't. It's just someone's drunk, someone's high, or there's just a really ridiculous arm. People get emotional. And so I'm okay with there being some different type of police department or police section that's not necessarily have firearms attached to them and they're ready to make arrests, but they're there to de-escalate a situation before it goes to that situation. Because cops are not trained to be mommy daddy out there for a couple or two people who get into an argument. That's not what their job is. Their job is to take on a threat, take them down, arrest someone, and send them to jail. So they have a completely different way of looking at a situation when they're going in. And you see many videos out there. Yes, I understand there are many people who get shot and killed by police, and it's terrible. And I totally feel for that. And I think those officers should be punished. But on the flip side of the coin, I've seen many videos at the same time where a person gets a gun and shoots a police officer right then and there, and the police officer's dead. They didn't have time to react because they're trying to be the nice cop, right? They're walking up to the person in the car. They just pulled over, and they're like, hey, man, can I get your license, registration? And they're very relaxed about it. But all of a sudden, that person gets out a gun just as fast, and then the police officer's dead. And so police officers, their training is just a different type of level. And that's why you look at the military, right? And why a lot of military people go into the police force. It's somewhat similar, but not. And just to go back to what you were saying earlier, Rob, about and I'm going to digress just a little bit, and then we can pick this back up. Is as someone who was college educated, then joined the service, got back out. Now I'm a small business owner with my family, and we do real estate. And understanding what it means to have our rights, what it means to truly understand to be a citizen that is free from the government and to have our rights versus someone who is essentially a serial number to the government to where you have almost no rights. I think it's very important that folks, they just don't understand what that means to have those rights, and they don't take it as serious. And so for me, if you want to burn the flag, by all means. I went to Afghanistan. I signed on that dotted line. If you want to, that's your First Amendment right. Go right ahead. You want to kneel for the flag? Go right ahead. That is your right. Do I think that's disrespectful? Yes, I do. Do I not appreciate it? Of course I don't appreciate it. But I'm not going to tell you can't do that, because you're free to do that. And that's what I'll say about that. You may not have thought I was going to say that, Rob, but I'm okay with that.
I figured you'd agree with that one. I'm with you on that. The reason that's important to me, and I bring it up because it's sort of the most controversial freedom of speech issue on the right, but I've lived places where if you burn the flag, you would go to jail or worse. And that's terrifying. Our fealty is to the individual rights enumerated in the Constitution, not to our government and not to any symbol of our government.
No, absolutely. But I'll say this on the flip side, though. Things. I know you guys follow me, but I always like to bring up the lines in the sand, right? And so the lines in the sand for me is that it's okay for you to burn the American flag. It's okay for you to kneel flag. That's fine. I get that. But if you heel out and do some rubber tire marks on an LGBTQ flag placed on the middle of a sidewalk, all of a sudden someone's getting arrested for a felony. That's where I look at that and I'm like, that's ridiculous. You guys want the American. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, which way is it? You can't have it both ways. And so that's where, again, lines in the sand. That's why I guess you could say I lean more Republican, or I am a Republican. I vote for Republican, but I think almost like a next step up is that I would say I am totally anti-Democrat. And so I would tell anybody, vote for someone else besides them, because there are many more Forward Party, Libertarian Party, the Mises. I always called it the Mises Toxis, but you said it's just the Mises.
Mises,
yeah. The Green Party. I mean, if you're really left, by all means, go to the Green Party. They're very principled. Left. That's what I'm saying. They are principled. They'll tell you, hey, this is what we stand for. We're gonna tell you what we stand for, and we actually do it, and we stand by it. Versus, again, this line in the sand where it's okay for other people to do it, but not okay for people to do it over here. So that's what really frustrates me, and that's where I try to my best to walk that line when I'm out there. I'm not trying to intentionally be a Republican influencer. It's just more, I would say I'm a conservative first, and those values more. I didn't even vote for Trump in the primary. I did not. I voted for other candidates in the primary because I knew what was happening right now is happening right now. Now, am I 100% behind Trump because I know all these trials are a bunch of sham? Of course, and he's going to get my vote. I'm not going to vote for anybody else. And so I hope any of your listeners out there that are on the fence between maybe Joe Biden or RFK or whoever, that they would maybe vote that way.
I suspect very few of my listeners will be voting for Biden. I will say this. Republicans piss me off a lot more because they don't follow what they say. We get promises of small government and we get more government. The Democrats, at least you know what you're up against. And there's a few things where I'm like, all right, I agree. So like, we're at polar opposites on the drugs thing. I think the idea that you would put someone in a cage for smoking pot in their basement is crazy. And I think that cops use it as a way to sort of generate revenue. And then you have situations like, did you see this Rockingham sheriff? He's asking for a raise. Go ahead.
I didn't see anything about the Rockingham sheriff, but to your point, it's states' rights at that point. If Colorado, going back to the earliest conversation at the beginning, states' rights versus federalism, if Colorado wants to, or I think Oregon or Washington, I can't remember. Oregon, I think they went all the way. I think you can do heroin. I think they went all the way. Oregon. So they've done that. So if they want to do that, then you have the freedom to go move to that state if you want to, versus in North Carolina, where most people go to a church and most people either go to a mosque or a temple and they worship and they have these conservative ideas. It's okay for you to vote for someone who says, you know what, I don't think we should have drugs on the street. They shouldn't be legal. That's going to be my platform. And that's what we're going to put. And I think that's the beauty of our republic, is that then they can create laws to do that at the state level. I think at the federal level, you're talking states' rights versus federal rights at that. And so that becomes very difficult. Like abortion, for example, they're never going to get anywhere on abortion at the federal level. It is too divided. And so I'm glad that the Supreme Court overturned that decision and put it back to the states. I wish all states would have the moral courage, so to say, to put at least some restrictions and not have it completely unfiltered. I don't think that's unreasonable to ask, and that's why I harp on the North Carolina Democratic Party a lot. In their platform, it clearly states that they want full-term, taxpayer-funded, no questions asked, on-demand abortions. It is in their platform, and I highly disagree with that. There should absolutely be limits on it. There's limits on our Second Amendment right. There can be limits on our Second Amendment right than a privilege, so to say, and I don't want to demean that at all. To have an abortion should most definitely be regulated as well. And that goes back to either our rights are absolute or they're not. And right now they're not. So then everything's on the board to be regulated.
You said something interesting. You said states' rights. So I hate that phrase. States don't have rights. People have rights. States have authorities. And that's really important to me. So I'm very much anti-federalism. If I were in charge, the federal government would protect our borders. They would resolve disputes between the states. That's probably it. I'm not kidding. Ensure that the Constitution is being enforced at the state level, because that remains the law of the land. So no state has the authority to supersede the Constitution. But beyond that, like, the federal government would be almost non-existent. But so would the state government. I have no faith in government whatsoever, because to me, so here's why I'm a libertarian. I would argue that there's one basic truth to human psychology, and that is that people do what they're incentivized to do. If you don't understand why someone's doing something, you don't understand their incentive structure. Politicians are incentivized to win elections. To win elections, they need to hoard power. Hoard power, they need money. To get money, they need to sell out the power they're going to have to special interests who will give them money. There's a group, Represent Us. And I put the video in my podcast a few times. I can send you all the link. I drop it in a lot, actually. But basically, if 100% of the population or 0% of the population supported legislation, it still has a 30% chance of passing. There's no bill that the politicians care about what we say. They say what they need to do to get elected, and then they go off and do what their special interests. And it just happened today. Phil Berger is getting sued. So I'm in favor of the casinos. I'll tell you right. Well, I shouldn't say I'm in favor of the casinos. I believe in property rights. If you own land and want to build a casino, who the hell am I to say no? But Berger was apparently making some backroom deals, and he passed this law where he can just destroy documents to try to hide it. And now he and a bunch of other people, there's like 4 other people, are getting sued for this. To me, it's like Republicans are the party of small government and government accountability. And then they pass a law that says we're allowed to destroy documents because we want to destroy documents. And they all got behind it. You mentioned the Second Amendment. I liked Mark Robinson 2 years ago because of that Second Amendment video. Like, I was cheering, like, yeah, this dude, he's speaking my language. Where was he when HB 189 was up? Libertarians were there. We were protesting. We dropped a letter with, I think, 7,000 signatures at Phil Berger's office. And we had 20 members of the LPNC there, including our governor candidate. Like your Second Amendment right is not up for negotiation. Your right to defend yourself. If the greatest right we have is property of ourselves, our own property, then the most important expression of that is your ability to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. That is non-negotiable to us. Like, we have people, including me, who have shirts that say legalize recreational nukes. And we're not kidding. Like, why should Joe Biden have the red button? Like, he's a dementia patient. It's elder abuse at this point. I can't even be mad at him. I just feel bad for the dude, but he can push the nuclear button. But I could go to jail for having that authority. He can sign a bill for $100 billion of our money to go fund people dying overseas so that Raytheon stock can go through the roof. But my property tax is going up 60%.
Hey, I 100% believe that I should be able to walk into Walmart, buy me a belt-fed, full auto machine gun, a 4-pack of Claymores, and walk right out. That's my Second Amendment right, and that's what it should be.
See, I would just add that I should also be able to buy a pack of joints, and then.
But see, now what people don't get real quickly, and I'll let you get in there. What people don't understand, the gun grabbers don't understand about full auto. Those guns are $60,000, $70,000, and so if you can afford one, you should be able to afford one. If Elon Musk wants to go out there and buy an F-16 and fly it around and drop some bombs on his property, he should be able to do that. Go ahead, Leigh.
I was just going to point out with marijuana, my issue with drug legalization is my same issue with the very awful COVID jabs. It is lack of informed disclosure and informed consent. Marijuana has a history of causing psychotic breaks. And there's a great book, if you haven't read it, with all the research that Alex Berenson did. It's called Tell the Children from
I
2017.
read it. I disagree with every single
But you
thing you
got you
said.
got to look at where the numbers have gone, because I follow the numbers. The homeless people, the zombies on the streets, the situations with schizophrenia and all those assorted mental disorders, it mirrors the increase of marijuana use. And so here's my thing, if you want to use it and you're fully informed and you know what you're getting into, that's one thing. But full legalization says everybody smoke up if you want to. And that's putting vulnerable people at risk. And I do think a reasonable group of leaders understands not putting people at risk who are not equipped to understand the risks they're under. And whether that makes me a nanny state, I don't really care at this point, because I look at that marijuana, it's a real problem. Because also the people who grow marijuana at home, that is not the same stuff that's being sold to people on the streets. It's got fent mixed into it. So we have a lot of different issues going on that we're introducing in pursuit of tax revenue. Because one of my issues with legalization of marijuana, it's just looking for more tax revenue. And the last thing I need is to see people taxed more so that the government can waste more on things nobody asked for. So there's, again, it's multi-layer, but I look at that, the situation with marijuana, and I have 2 teenagers, and I know that it's everywhere around them, and everybody acts like it's so easy, it's so simple, it's so natural, it's no big deal. It is a big deal because it's causing a lot of problems for a lot of people, and it's pervasive. And also, I hate walking downtown because I walk through a cloud of that foul skunk smell everywhere I go, and I'm so tired of it. I don't want to smell your crap.
Let me actually address that first, because this is important, and then I want to get into what you're saying. But I would very much be in support of an ordinance that says you get some significant fine if the smell gets out. So libertarians are governed by something called the non-aggression principle, which is basically don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. You cannot initiate violence as a means to achieve political or social gain. So then philosophically, it's sort of like what counts as an aggression. And forcing someone else to smell your dank smoke is definitely, in my mind, in the field of aggression. So if you want to do things, you have to do them responsibly. Instead of nanny state, I just bring back liability. So case law would very much determine what's allowed and what isn't. But so John, you mentioned wanting to talk about nuclear power, and I actually very much draw a parallel between marijuana and nuclear power. There are a lot of powerful lobbies that have created a lot of hype and made people believe there is significant danger when it's just not true. So I read Berenson's book. Alex Berenson is one of my favorite journalists. There was no one better on COVID than him and Brett Weinstein. And the work he did was unbelievable. And he will be a hero no matter what for me for that. But he's completely wrong on marijuana. Where with COVID, he did a whole bunch of very powerful statistical analysis. So it's really hard to prove causation, but it's beyond a reasonable doubt with correlations and just like this happened. And every time this happened, look what happened next. And look at excess mortality and look at kind of who's being affected by it. Cause it looks like the jab in particular is most dangerous to young athletes. And it seems to be that, they're pushing their hearts harder. And that's where myocarditis and pericarditis, they don't get better. That's not a symptom. It is, I don't know how you define it, but you don't get myocarditis. Something causes your heart tissue to swell and it develops scar tissue. That doesn't get better. With the marijuana stuff, and I will say this, the risks of marijuana usage in schizophrenia are actually very clearly defined. And if you have a history of schizophrenia in your family, I would strongly recommend not smoking pot, because it is definitely one of the things that appears to be a potential trigger for it. The rest of what he brings into that comparison ignores a whole lot of other factors, in particular, other drugs. So you were mentioning Oregon has gone full legalization. But they've done something else. They've provided the drugs for people. Like you don't have to go get it. It's like, here, come here, and we'll give you some heroin to shoot up. That's insane. It's like for immigration, and we can get into this one too, but I'm an Ellis Island person. So I basically want open borders, but we need to know who's coming in. But before we can do that, we need to get rid of the welfare state. You want to solve the immigration problem? Stop giving handouts and then let the market handle it. Similarly, nuclear power was this panacea. So I'll say this, I think climate change is real. I don't think it's going to destroy us next year. For me, it's not that big a leap that like carbon is really good at storing energy. That's why all of life is made of carbon. You put a little more carbon in, it gets warmer. You go up a mountain, it gets colder because there's less carbon up there. I don't think that we should be cutting back on fossil fuel usage right now. I think that's the greatest engine of productivity and has driven more positive things for humanity than anything else in history. But I do think that we should be looking for substitutions now. One, because it's cleaner. So it's not just about global warming, but we're just pumping smoke into the air. That's not good. But we have nuclear energy, and we have these third and fourth generation reactors that are much smaller, way more efficient. You can recycle fuel. We opened one in Georgia, but I think it was $27 billion. It was like $18 billion over budget. But it's all this hype. I mean, did you all, by any chance, John, I'm jumping right into the nuclear, but did you see the Oliver Stone documentary on it?
I did not.
So good. I highly recommend.
What's it called?
Oh, Nuclear Now or something like that. It was just on Amazon. But he details the trail of hype and the lobbyists. So here's something that I found fascinating. And I don't remember the name of the exact group, but guess who was the biggest donor, and I haven't checked since 2015, I confess, but to Greenpeace's anti-nuclear lobby in 2015?
Anti-nuclear?
Yeah.
I'm going to say the coal power industry lobbyists.
You're really close. It was ExxonMobil.
Nah.
So they're saying all this hype. And the reason I draw the parallel, more people die every year from coal and oil related power generation that have died in all of history from nuclear power. Similarly, 30,000 people, 40,000 people die every year from alcohol consumption. Not a single person ever has died from smoking marijuana. So we've like sort of misplaced our hype things, and there's a lot of money that goes into driving those things. Right now in Florida, they're trying to, so hemp products were legal and they're trying to make those illegal. And I think it just passed. Turns out a whole bunch of liquor distributors given a lot of money to that lobby.
Yeah. So when, yeah, I'm processing it right now, but I'm going to stay on the topic of nuclear power because that's what got brought up. I'm a numbers. I like numbers. I've done the homework. I've crunched the numbers on nuclear power, coal power, gas power. I did a great thread on it. I don't know if y'all had a chance to check that out. I'll post it later.
Look at it.
Yeah, and so I broke down North Carolina's power industry and how much we're generating and so on and so forth. And in 2010, the majority of our power, about 39% or so, came from coal power plants. Well, they were trying to get rid of it because they want to go gas because gas is cleaner, it's more efficient, and it's better than coal plants. And so since 2010, we've shut down like almost 90% of all the coal power plants here in North Carolina, and we've replaced them with gas power plants, which is good. But we've done nothing with nuclear. And so those 36, I think it is, 36 gas power plants still does not produce, or it produces just as much as 4 nuclear power plants.
I believe it.
And it does. And so, and then you're trying to combine, the left agenda, the environmentalists. I am not an environmentalist. I'm a conservationist. I love going out into the woods and hunting. I want to preserve all the forests out there. I want nature. I love going fishing. I'm disappointed that the flounder season this year in North Carolina has been cut because I love a good whole flounder, deep fried at the fish camp there in Gastonia. It's delicious.
I had one Friday night.
And so if we could get back on the nuclear is good, and it produces a lot of jobs, and it powers, and it makes our bills go less because you don't need as many. I think something that's funny that's kind of correlation to all that is that in the 70s, when nuclear power was touted as like, you know, the energy problem it's going to solve everybody's energy problem. We don't need, bills are going to go down. Well, since the 70s, you have to think what the average household size was. The average house was probably like, and Leigh, you can probably talk about this a little bit more, but in the 70s, the average size of a house was probably like 1,000 square foot, maybe 1,200 square foot, 2-3 bedroom, 1 bath, had probably a refrigerator, a couple appliances, and that was it. Maybe a TV, probably a TV.
And costs what? $55,000?
Oh no, in the
Cost like
70s, you're talking like $16,000.
Was okay. I wasn't sure when the big jump was. I thought that was 60, but okay.
Big jump hits in when you go to the 80s and the inflation that the Carter era caused.
And so, yeah, mixed with all that, and then the technology in every household. Every house now has a TV in its bedroom, a PlayStation, a DVD player, garage door openers, your appliances, a washer, dryer, all the appliances. And so your consumption per household has skyrocketed. And so it's no longer how much energy is being produced, it's how much energy is being consumed per household. And the industries, right? You have a lot of big industries. And so nuclear is the way forward if we're trying to go green, so to say. Another interesting part about that breakdown of nuclear power versus like solar, because the left is always pushing solar and stuff like that, it would take over the size of Wake County. Wake County is a little over 500,000 acres. It would take over the size of Wake County to just level flat and put all solar panels there to just equal what North Carolina needs in a day. And so it's
and that's assuming it's sunny.
And that's assuming and there's no battery backup, right? There's no, what happens if it's or if maybe demand goes up because it's a really cold day or something like that, or it's a really hot day in the summer and all of a sudden demand goes really up. There's no supply there. And so in order to combat that, you can get I think the average of like a nuclear facility is like 50 to 75 acres. And that can power tons of time. Now, what's fascinating, I did just learn I think it was in Canada, they actually have a new reactor. It's about the size of a large outdoor generator that you hook up to like an RV. So it's about the size of a trailer. If you see any trucks trolling a trailer behind it, like an F-150 type truck in a trailer, it's about the size of that. And it can power like 35,000 homes for like 10 years. And the cost is very, very low. And it's just a portable nuclear reactor. And so this company in Canada is trying to roll this out and be like, hey, rural areas and wherever you're at in Kansas or maybe rural North Carolina or something like that, hey, I can set this up and I can power a ton of people for a extremely low cost. So I think it just makes sense. And just solar is just not there and wind's just not there. I think it's great for personal homes. If you have the money and you want to invest power banks and put it on your house and be completely off the grid, have a well, have a septic, and just be off grid, more power to you. But as far as a statewide policy or policies that the government should be pushing, it should be nuclear power for sure.
Well, I mean, you say you're a conservationist, and so you have to look at the long-term problems from solar, because first of all, it eats up so much arable land. There's this huge swath of Mount Pleasant, which is here in Cabarrus County, that is all solar panels. And it's disgusting to me because it's ruined the wildlife patterns. And then in addition to how it eats up land and you're messing with the wildlife, those panels are toxic and there's nowhere to put them when they're outdated. And all of those rare metals that are in them are destroying the earth. And I actually had reached out to the lobbyist for Toyota while they're negotiating the mega site. This is a couple of years ago, which is going to be up there, Guilford County, Randolph County, huge investment in the state. Yay, jobs. I said, what are you going to do with your construction debris? Where is the landfill for all of the excess from building these batteries? That's a battery plant. And there was no answer for it. I still don't know what they're going to do with the excess from those batteries. So if we're going to talk about conserving the environment and thinking about energy, we have to always think about the waste side of things. And the nuclear waste is controllable. It's a small amount. My cousin has worked at McGuire Nuclear Station up on Lake Norman for 30 years. And they are meticulous with how they handle everything because they understand the gravity of what they do. I'm not sure we think there's any gravity to solar. It's just slap a few panels up and no big deal. But John,
Or
you and I
wind.
both know, like if you go to sell a house with solar panels, are they leased or are they owned? How old are they? Where are they going to go when you have to trade them out? And suddenly you're dealing with an environmental nightmare. But at the core of all of this, I still think climate change and the whole bit is just a monetary grift up in the economy because all of the situations we've talked about here are go back to crony capitalism because we aren't looking for the cheapest, most efficient solution. We're looking for the solution that makes somebody somewhere the most money. And sadly, our uniparty is tied in with that.
So you said a couple of interesting things. So first of all, I did an article on nuclear too after watching Oliver Stone's thing. All of the nuclear waste generated ever in the United States would fit, if you dug a football field 30 feet deep, it would fit inside of that. Everything. We recycle it. We're incredibly efficient. We also, you mentioned solar. So I like solar a little more. I hate solar farms, but I do like solar panels on houses. Not as a primary source, but like it can make your electricity bill a lot cheaper. But the incentives are not to do that. The lobbyists are against making these personal solar panels more effective. I've been on a big anti-wind crusade. They're killing dolphins and whales at like an exorbitant rate. The noise is really damaging to wildlife, and it actually, if you're worried about carbon emissions, there's more carbon emitted building most windmills. It's some ridiculous proportion. The windmill offsets like 1/80th of the carbon that it requires to build the windmill, but people are getting paid for it. I'm all in on nuclear power. I would go like full nuclear for everything. Let people put a solar panel on their house if they're facing the sun to make it cheaper, and that would be my power solution. Hydroelectric, maybe some places where it makes sense, but I even have some skepticism there.
Hey, I think we all agree on that. High five.
Yeah, definitely. It's,
Ah,
my biggest issue with Republicans is that there's a lot, especially in North Carolina, because there's a lot of different flavors of Republican. North Carolina Republicans tend to be more traditional, like respect the Constitution, love the country, just want to be able to be free. And then I turn around and y'all are voting for people who, so I've been going after more than almost anyone. Greg Murphy, I think he's NC or US House 3.
He's House 3, and he's recovering from brain tumor surgery.
He is. He voted to extend FISA 702 with warrantless supervision. And so did Jeff Jackson. And I've come out very publicly. So the Republican communications director, Matt something, started a discussion on Twitter and then quickly turned into like, Libertarians are blah, and this is why you only get 5% of the vote. And I was like, all right, it's my mission to see to it that you lose in this next election. I will make sure you don't get a single Libertarian vote because you're kind of a cocky asshole. But I am backing Dan Bishop loudly and publicly because Dan Bishop had the courage to vote against that FISA extension. And I'm backing Michelle Morrow because people I trust in education say that while she does have some crazy things she said in the past, she's talking to people, she's listening, she's learning, she wants to make education better, whereas Mo Green has sort of hermetically sealed himself, and you're never going to see me support a more centralized pro-teachers union candidate. So
well, Dan Bishop, when COVID happened in 2020 and Raleigh police came out and had the famous tweet here in North Carolina that
Monica User,
protesting is non-essential. Dan Bishop went up there and dropped off the Constitution at the doorsteps. And ever since then, I was like, okay, this guy's legit. And then I saw what he did when he was part of that Gang of 10 when Kevin McCarthy was going to get elected Speaker of the House. And he was like, no, we want concessions. We want the ability to kick him out with one or two votes to get him out. And he stood by that. And it was disgusting to me to see how much the Republican media and how many Republican talking heads, the uniparty, I would say at this point, turned against these 10 people who were like, no, like these people are bad. They don't want to do anything, and just totally turned against them. And here I am, I'm looking at like, no, they're trying to return the the balance, the order that's supposed to be in the House, where you actually have debates, you actually talk about these bills. Like, you're supposed to have at least like a week to read it and not have it dropped the night before and be like, all right, we're voting on this, you better pass it. And so to me, that took a lot of courage in both. Well, not really the first one, dropping off the Constitution, but the second one took a lot of courage to do that, to stand up to that. And I very much appreciate that. And Dan Bishop 100% has my vote. And so does Michelle Morrow. I think she is someone who's going to turn things, she's going to shake things up in a good way. And I think that's what's needed. I think there needs to be more people like that, not just go with the flow and go with the grain.
I mean, give me any chance to vote for somebody who's not a career politician, and I'm going to give them a shot, more so than the person who's been in the belly of the beast for a long time.
Well, then check out we have 54 candidates running now in the state.
Yeah, but how many of them are electable, do you think? Of your 54 candidates, how many are going to get across the finish line?
I don't want to give away our full strategy. I know it's a small amount. There are a few that we think have a very real, maybe even more than 50% chance.
Okay, so then what is your strategy? How do you reach the disaffected voter? Because North Carolina's primary affiliation now is unaffiliated. How do you get them off of the Republican and Democrat ticket to consider you as a viable third option?
Decentralization, local and working up. So I'm the comms director for the party, and you need messaging. You need messaging. You need a ceiling, and messaging has to come from the top down and then grassroots bottom up spreading of it. But if it's inconsistent and incoherent, then no one will pay attention to you. So I've spent the last 2 years really working on the messaging platform, getting a newsletter up and running, getting a bunch of people involved, getting this podcast going, interacting with libertarians, but lots of other people like you two Republicans, Democrats in North Carolina, finding areas we can agree, building coalitions, working on things. We're really pushing on some body camera reform right now. So we want to see all body camera just be available, unless you're protecting the victim of, minors or the victim of a crime. Obviously, we'd blur those faces out, but none of this, like a judge has to approve it, because there's never been a case where the judge has sided against the police, and the police never want body camera footage to get out when they might have done something wrong. We've also been pushing really hard on constitutional carry. John, you mentioned Andy Stevens. Andy Stevens is a big supporter of the LPNC now. He's been on the podcast twice. He has disavowed the Republican Party, and he still supports a number of the Republican candidates, Dan Bishop being one of them. But his whole thing is Libertarians showed up for 189, and Mark Robinson didn't say a word. And have you all heard like the rumors of what happened with 189 with constitutional carry? Because like that Friday, what was it, last September maybe, but it was up and it was going to pass, and the Republicans had a super majority, so Cooper was going to veto it, and then like those 7 other bills, the Republicans were going to vote it back in. And then all of a sudden Phil Berger comes out and says it's just not the right time, and just takes it off. They're not going to vote on it anymore. And what I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, so very much qualifying that, like, rumors are rumors, but the NRA gets a lot of money from some of these concealed carry license classes that they hold. And they called people who they donate a lot of money to and said, this one better not pass. I hate the NRA, for the record. There's no group that is more opposed to the Second Amendment than the NRA.
Yeah.
Ahead,
So my question to you, Rob, and kind of going back to what like Leigh was saying, was there was a few days ago, Shane Hazel out of Georgia posted a tweet kind of putting a shot across the bow with Oliver Chase. Is it possible, is there a divide, or is there a chance, I would say, for libertarians that are more Shane Hazel-ish versus Oliver Chase-ish that would maybe come over to the Republican side and maybe form like a libertarian caucus or a libertarian group, like you can have like Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, kind of have those folks over there till we start trying to incorporate over and float over here, still be you, but just be more on incorporated that way to possibly win more elections and get funding that way.
Sure. It's a strategy that's been discussed and is actually being implemented in some places. So Justin Amash is as libertarian as you can be, and he's running as a Republican again because there's a good chance he'll get elected, and he will then become my favorite person in Congress. Just brilliant, liberty-minded, knows the Constitution in and out, hates the way the bills are passed now. Like you said, 2,000 page bills, which, quick plug, Mike Ross, our governor candidate, one of his planks is government accountability. And he will veto any bill that is not on display for public comment 1 day for every page in the bill. So 10-page bill, the public gets 10 days to review it. 1,000-page bill, you're gonna wait 1,000 days before that one passes. So you don't get these omnibus bills. It's real short ones.
And that's a good plan to put a metric to it. It would stop the omnibus. I hate the omnibus bills. They're evil.
They're terrible. There's
And
just a whole bunch of stuff.
He's running for governor of North Carolina? Okay.
Firetheuniparty.com.
Well, that's good. Most of the Republican bills that are coming out are only like 10 pages long anyway, at most. So that I think that's great. I think they should do that.
They are, but some of them are crazy. Did you see today they just refused to pass a bill that would let local school boards determine the school year within a certain window? So it's basically just to make it like 2 weeks longer on either end, and the Republicans in the NC Senate just shot it down.
Yeah, that's terrible.
The school calendar, but that's because tourism is wildly affected when you change the school calendar. And that's a huge piece of the economic picture of the state.
Sure. Overall, so again, from my perspective, the economic picture of the state is not relevant. It's the economic of the individual. Like, I don't believe in the state. But in this case,
so then look at the economic picture of the individuals in Brunswick County. That's the third poorest county in the state. That's Holden Beach, Ocean Isle Beach, Sunset Beach. But then the money's on the waterfront inside the county is dreadfully poor. They make all their money between the end of May and the middle of August. So when the school calendar moves, all those service workers and the people in that county that rely on that summer tourism money, it gets hammered. And so it's a balancing out of, there's a ripple effect from what happens in Cabarrus County, because Cabarrus County broke the school calendar law and there was no repercussion, which to me, you're teaching the kids a terrible thing there. You have this law, the county broke it, but oh well, nobody cares, nobody did anything. Great. So there's no reason to follow any laws. So either follow it or don't. But Cabarrus County broke the law. So we got out of school in the second week of May, and the beach isn't even going by that point because of course we had a cool spring, but it's a balancing out. And I can look at that from a 30,000 foot view and say, I want the service workers at the beach to be able to feed their families for the year with the best possible outcome. And if that means Cabarrus County needs to behave with their calendar, then Cabarrus County needs to behave with their calendar. Because if you're a homeschool parent, you can set your own calendar anyway, but it just applies to the public schools. But again, if we wipe out DPI, then we're fine.
And that'd be my solution. So this has been a fascinating discussion. I appreciate both your time very much. I definitely want to get you back on, but it's been an hour and a half almost. So I want to close with something that, John, you posted about maybe 2 days ago. That is, again, the cornerstone of Mike Ross's campaign, and that's nullification, which we started off talking about. So Cabarrus County just didn't follow the calendar. And to me, so you say like that's a bad lesson, and I laughed. This is where, and my wife would agree with you strongly. So you're just a libertarian because you don't like being told what to do. But I would be cheering, like #become ungovernable. This is awesome. The state's not going to tell me what to do. We'll have our school year when we want it. Like, I love that sort of stuff. I'm being a little hyperbolic there, but what, as Republicans, do you think is the both sort of philosophical imperative or right of a locality to take advantage of nullification? And what do you think is the likelihood of that actually happening officially? And we do have some. We have immigration, what are they called? What do they call those cities? Sanctuary cities. But now we have Second Amendment sanctuary cities where sheriffs say they're not going to enforce what they believe is unconstitutional laws. I'm for all of it. Do you think there's an opportunity, like, especially with how just sort of polarized and disheveled the structure of our government is right now, do you think there's a chance to see more of this?
So I'm in Union County, and in 2020, when Governor Cooper, Manny Cohen said, "Hey, you need to keep the kids out," and okay, we'll let them back in school just a little bit. Okay, well, if we're gonna let them back in school, you need to contact trace every single student if one comes in with a cough. Union County came in very early on in that and was like, "No, we're not going to contact trace none of the kids. That's not our job. We're here to educate, and we're keeping our kids in school." And so that was something that was, to me, I'm like, I'm proud of my local government to nullify what the state was doing, and I think that was a good job. And I think there's a lot of that in our bellies. The problem, this is tough for me because there has to be some type of glue. There has to be some type of left and right balance. There's got to be something that holds us together to kind of keep us all on the same sheet of music. And so if one local place like Union County can do that, well, like you said, just what you said with sanctuary cities, you have Mecklenburg County, who's been a sanctuary city. There was caught in Gaston County, there was an illegal immigrant who was wanted on child rape in like Honduras or something like that. And in my head, I'm like, thank God they were caught in Gaston County, because if they would have been caught or pulled over in Mecklenburg County, they would have been like, well, we're not going to contact ICE. We're not going to let anything go. We're just going to let this guy go. And oh, well, because that's our policy. I don't know if that would have happened, but I have a strong feeling it would have happened because that's just their policies. And so I go back and forth. I think it is local government, and I think we should be pushing back. And I think local control is where it's at. I think the state should be pushing more control down to the localities to where they do have the authority to set their own school schedules, or to, like you're talking about property rights. I think rezoning is huge. And I know Leigh can talk about on this too. Like Disney, for example, Disney's trying to build that huge subdivision out in Pittsboro in the middle of Chatham County. And so a lot of locals are like, no, we don't want that. That's going to be terrible for our itty bitty little town. Well, the city council, or you could, if it's in the city, if it's in the city limits, or the county, if it's in county jurisdiction, they can approve that whether the citizens want it or not. And they are primarily Democrat. And so, to my knowledge, right now, it's been approved, and there's nothing that the citizens can do. And I think that's part of the responsibility of local governance, is to approve subdivision. Because if I live in a rural county and I want it to remain rural, where I like seeing the trees, I like seeing the farms, and I like how there's not really a lot of high density housing because I live out there. I don't want my little town council to come in and start approving big, massive subdivisions if that's what I want my little town to be. So I think it's important for a city council to have that power at the local level, and it should not really be at the state level. Local is better for me.
Well, and to that point, we want to solve that. We have to fix the uneducated voter, because you could talk to any voter, any of us knows they are set on their presidential candidate, Trump, Biden, Kennedy. They've got their guy. Down the ballot, maybe on governor, they're set. The lower you get, the closer you get to home, the less idea they have about who that person is, what their policies are, what their background is, what their character is. So we have put big decisions like a Disney neighborhood, which just made me throw up in my mouth a little bit when I saw that on Instagram. And then I'm watching in the Axios articles. I was like, this is awful. But those people in that county, they're angry right now. They voted in those people, whether they didn't vote or they voted like this. That name looks okay. And they never went to a planning and zoning meeting. I have been to so many planning and zoning meetings, and the audience consists of somewhere between 3 to 10 people. And whatever those 3 to 10 people pitch a fit about, that council will cave, because local officials are the weakest on the planet. They will cave in a minute to public opinion, but the public doesn't show up because the public's either apathetic or thinks that going on Facebook and typing like this solves a problem. If we really want things to get stronger locally, and that if you want to be ungovernable so you can build communities that take care of each other again, then we have to reverse engineer how we look at all of our electoral politics, which would actually take us out of the purity test of the R's and D's if we got back to the character of the person you knew from the grocery store and from church again.
I
think there's
100% agree with that. I think that is very well said. And if you had people, local people back in their communities, building the community they want, they get what they want. I think that's beautiful.
there was a situation in Orange County, which is a very wealthy county in North Carolina, as well as other states. But the very wealthy residents threw a big fit about a Buc-ee's that was trying to come there.
Yeah, because it wasn't
And-
coming to Orange County. They didn't want to be near it because that's your liberal Chapel Hill money that was
Well,
angry.
first, my understanding was first it was going to be in Orange County, then it was going to be right next to it.
No, Alamance got it, but Orange was never a candidate because they didn't have enough acreage for it because Buc-ee's has to have a minimum 25 acres. So
Okay,
it
I
was
didn't realize. I thought it was Orange was the first discussion, and then it went right next to it.
I'm a big Buc-ee's fan, so like I
Same
stand
here.
by
Same here.
stand.
But I have no problem with the Disney Village coming. I have a problem with a city council telling people what they can and can't do with their land. But we have to unwind the situation. Let me end with this. So, John, I'm very sympathetic to what you said about if you want to be in rural North Carolina, you should be in rural North Carolina. I ran for mayor of Charlotte last cycle, and my housing plan was actually to get more restrictive on zoning for 5 years. Because what bugs me more than telling people what they can and can't do with their property is central planning promises being broken. So if you bought in a suburb with the promise from city council that this is what you're always going to have, and then developers from out of state are giving them a bunch of money and they're changing it on you, and they're running these ridiculous impact assessments where it's like traffic will get this much worse and you'll need this many schools, but it's not cumulative. So they just do the impact of each one, and then it's like the roads can handle 100,000 new cars, and that's the most we're going to see. And it's like, no, you have 7 developments and each one's going to cross. So, but then at the end of the 5-year plan, I was basically going to remove all zoning restrictions. There's a few that like I know no one would ever accept. So like I'm not going to say that you should be able to put your sewage treatment plant next to people's houses. I think you should, but I get why people don't. And
You should not be able to sell your 10 acres and have or like a little mini nuclear reactor there, and your next door neighbors are looking at it like, why is that there? Or whatever it may be.
But if you let the neighbors share it, John, then it's okay.
That's right. That's right.
Until you come out glowing or something.
I mean, then your electric bill comes down because you're glowing in the house.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
My lights light up when you walk there. Hey, John, Leigh, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. It's good to highlight, first of all, that we can disagree on things and have a good conversation about them, and then also to show how much we agree on. And I don't think this is Libertarian or Republican. I think if we had a Democrat sitting in here, there would have been a lot of agreement too, because I really think that most of us want like stable retirement, our kids to go to good schools, a roof over our heads, money on the table, the ability to travel a little bit, and just the opportunity to enjoy life. Before we go, do you all want to plug anything?
I would
That's too easy.
I would just
Oh,
like
go
to
ahead,
remind,
Leigh.
can we remind all of your listeners that Thomas Jefferson plagiarized the Declaration of Independence from the MEC deck? And that's why May 20th, 1775 is on everything. I just like to point that out. That's all.
Sure.
It's too easy for me. Liver mush and grits.
Well, and I'm happy to put up both your social handles and stuff on the screen too if you want. But thank you very much. Looking forward to figuring out when we could do round 2.
Thanks for having us.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Have a wonderful night.
Have a good night.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing? How you doing, Cat Daddy?
Hey, it's a good day. It's a great day. And happy Father's Day
man.
to
I
Boo
know,
and himself.
I know you're not a father, but happy Father's Day.
Well, wait a minute. You call me a cat daddy. I'm a father.
Well,
to
yeah,
cats.
true. Yeah. You are the daddy of some pretty awesome cats. I hope we can see them today.
Well, I don't know, but I will give you a life update on them.
Okay.
Hold on. I apologize for that.
Are you having a little bit better internet service today?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. Last time we had some technical difficulties, you were cutting in and out. And
Yeah, I'm not cutting it right now.
hope they're fixed. Yeah.
We're cutting out.
Well, hey everybody, it's Groo and Dub back again to talk some sports. And I don't know about you, but I'm still rooting for Dallas. I know it's a far-fetched
Yeah, it's a tough road to
miracle,
hoe
but
being.
I think they can
Yeah.
do it. I've been pulling for
Hey.
Dallas since they got into the playoffs.
What I mean, it's the only sport left where it hasn't happened.
It almost seems, I don't know, man. It almost seems funny that they beat them so bad yesterday. And, you know, it's almost like it was rigged. I mean, I don't know.
And you know what? The same thing happened up in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Florida was looking
yeah,
to
I don't
sleep,
understand that.
and it was 8-1. It's like everybody's sticks just suddenly woke up, and I'm like, okay, this is just setting up for both teams to win on their home court and home ice, respectively. And is it just me? I want to tell you this, but it always leaves me with an unnerving feeling when basketball ends before hockey.
Oh, it is weird. Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
granted,
agree.
I get
Maybe
it
it
in
won't.
Olympic years when hockey takes basically a month off. That
Right.
I understand. But in a non-Olympic year, it should not end after basketball, seeing that they
Yeah.
start a month before basketball.
Right. So, I mean,
And
I think maybe this
it,
week they're both going to wrap it up at home. I think Boston will wrap it up in at home, and Florida will wrap it up down in Miami. I think there's one game left each. That's what I think. You know, I would
I
hate to
agree.
believe that hockey's rigged. I don't want to believe that, but the way they blew that game yesterday, 8-1, just makes me wonder sometimes if
No,
somebody's getting
it's
paid.
not rigged. You know, it's not rigged.
You don't think so?
No, it's not.
Is it set up that way?
You know, but did you see? Now, here's something odd. I don't know if you saw this story talking about stuff being rigged, but did you see where Pat Hoberg, he's a Major League Baseball umpire. He is suspended from Major League Baseball currently as they are doing an investigation about him doing gambling activities.
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, but here's the odd thing. And now you also know that there's this thing called an umpire auditor, where since about 2017 or 2018, they began auditing umpires on how close they called balls and strikes. And Pat Hoberg is the last umpire to have ever called a, quote, perfect game, where he got every ball and strike call correct. And, you know, there have been a couple folks that have done the 99.5% or the 99%, but not, you know.
So he's called a perfect game before.
He is called an umpire version of a perfect game. Yeah.
No mistakes.
No mistakes, balls, strikes, you know, and that's unheard of.
Yeah.
Because usually a good umpire, he has a good night if he only misses like one or two, but to call every ball, every strike correctly is amazing.
Yeah. And now he's suspended.
But yeah, he is suspended. Apparently, he was doing some baseball-related gambling, and even umpires cannot dabble in, you know, baseball gambling.
Right. Yeah, they can.
But right now, I think
in a minute.
And here's the thing. I just found that ironic that one of the best umpires to call games is the one being audited for illegal gambling activities. And it's like, why this guy? Why are they honing in on him when their most infamous umpire just retired out of the blue? Angel Hernandez.
Yeah.
Who was one of the worst ball and strike callers. And made more headlines than, you know, a good umpire. You're not supposed to know who his name is.
He got into a lot of fights, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, he ejected a lot of people because people would argue his balls and strikes, and they had a good reason to. My favorite one,
maybe he was blind.
Was just it. I mean, the times that Bryce Harper has gone after him, you know, it's like some umpires I think have vendettas against certain players.
That's what I wonder sometimes. If
And
they,
you know what? There were vendettas
a
in the
personal
NFL against
preference.
Cam Newton as well.
Mhm.
Gene Steratore, who's now the analyst for CBS, infamously told him, because he admitted it, when Cam was a young rookie, you haven't earned that call yet, meaning sliding quarterback getting hit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter whether you're a rookie or a 10-year vet. If you are a sliding quarterback and you get hit while you were sliding, and they're doing it on purpose and not meaning to check up or anything, that should be an automatic 15 yards.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the passer.
And to treat people differently because of experience or class or all-star or Pro Bowl or whatever is just wrong. You got to call it the same for everybody in the first or the fourth quarter, first period, last period. It does not matter. And that's one thing I just can't stand about some umpires or other officials, of how they do seem to show favoritism.
Apparently, he was the most hit quarterback of all time or something. Like he got hit a lot, and he got some bad hits too that were ignored. I mean, we know our offensive line wasn't good for a long time with him, but he was the most hit quarterback. I mean, he got beat up. So he had to run. So when he stopped running, we stopped winning. Really, what happened?
Yeah, and and that is why, if you talk to any good Carolina Panther fan, we cheered the day TJ Watt was out with an injury.
Yeah.
Because we blamed TJ Watt for ending Cam Newton's career, basically. Because he never could throw the same after that.
Right.
Because he could throw 60-yard bombs down the field.
Right.
He was hitting Ted Ginn Jr. on the fly.
Yeah.
In some of those years. And it was just a shame. But anyway.
Well, you wanted to talk about something kind of different today. You mentioned you wanted to talk about some cricket.
Yes, the Cricket World Cup, the T20 Cricket World Cup, to be a matter of fact. The T20 Cricket
Not many
World
people
Cup.
know about cricket.
Well, here's the thing. Cricket is pretty much what begat baseball in this country, because cricket's older than baseball. The first international cricket match was in 1844, and it was between the United States and Canada. It was not England and Australia or England and South Africa or any other country. It was the USA versus Canada. It was the first recorded international match of anything.
Nice.
Of any sport was a cricket match between the USA and Canada. And they basically...
You heard it right here, folks.
And the thing is, the opening game of the World Cup, which is being jointly hosted by the United States and the West Indies, was in Dallas, Texas, as I told you in last podcast, in the suburb of Grand Prairie, and at the cricket stadium there.
My dad used to live in Grand Prairie. I think I mentioned that last episode.
And they ended up chasing down 193 runs, which is a lot of runs in cricket.
Wow.
When you get near 200. And the previous high the U.S. had ever chased down was 169. So they beat that by a million there. And a guy by the name of Aaron Jones, he was born in America, raised in Barbados, but came back to America to live. And so he hit for 94 runs. He hit 10 what they call sixes, which would be the equivalent in baseball of a home run. If you get a ball that goes over the rope boundary on the fly, you get 6 runs automatically. If you bounce one towards the boundary, you get 4 runs automatically. And then you're at the risk of running for any hit that you get that doesn't reach the boundary but hasn't found a fielder yet. But everybody talks about getting one through the wickets in baseball. The term comes from cricket because what you're trying to do in cricket is defend the wicket from getting hit. And if it goes through you and hits the wicket, you're out. So you don't want to get caught, getting your wickets broken, but you also don't want to get caught just like baseball. If you make a hit, you get out if you're caught. If while running between the bases, or in their terms, running between the two wickets, you get caught out. If they break the wickets before you reach back to what they call the crease area safely, and it's a line on the field that you'll see. But what it is they play this game, and it was popular up until the early 1900s when baseball took over and basically supplanted cricket as our bat and ball sport. Excuse me. And so what they were trying to do with this T20 World Cup, number one, they expanded the field to 20 teams, so more teams got in. And number two, they chose the USA as a host because they think the USA is the next great market for cricket, because, they want to see us adopt it like we've adopted other sports. They saw what happened. I liken it to what happened in 1994 in the FIFA World Cup. They gave it to us because they thought soccer was the next great market to the USA, and look what it brought us. We now have a thriving MLS. We have a decent men's national side. We have a women's side that's won 4 World Cups.
Oh, yeah.
And, maybe the same thing will happen now that we've seen success in cricket. We'll have more people picking it up other than the diaspora from the South Asian nations in South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia and England. Because I will tell you this, I have been to cricket matches in Morrisville, and they are fun. So this year, Morrisville Raptors play. I implore people to get out and watch it. It's an exciting afternoon of cricket because, like I say, they're 2020 matches. These are matches that are over in a little less than 3 hours, about the same time as baseball.
Morrisville or Morrisville?
Morrisville, Morris.
Oh yeah, over here near Cary. Okay.
Yeah. You go down basically. Before you start paying tolls, or maybe you pay the first toll on 540, you get off on that exit and go towards Church Street Park, and you're there. There's it's just a beautiful round cricket pitch there, and you never would picture it on the outskirts of Raleigh and Cary area. There's a cricket pitch out there.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this or not, but just about an hour ago, Bryson, I can't pronounce his last name. It's DeChambeau?
Bryson DeChambeau. Won the US Open. Okay. Yeah, I did see that.
US Open right here in North Carolina.
Yeah, at Pinehurst.
Literally right at 1 hour ago. So
congratulations to him.
I saw he second US Open.
He fought off Rory McIlroy, who was looking to win his first. So
yeah, he got his second one, and happened right here in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And congratulations there. He's probably walking with 50 million in his pocket after that. Who knows? But congrats. Oh, which one is this?
No, she got up. Now she got down. It was Nimbus.
Nimbus Stratazacket showed up. That's awesome.
She's just playing. Oh, and now she fell again.
Is she on your shoulder?
Well, she was like coming up my arm, and then she was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this no more," and got back down. So she's being let out now, and the other two have taken to her nicely. But I always put her back at night because I can't leave them unsupervised because I don't know what they'll do to her if I'm not looking at them.
Right.
But anyway, back to the cricket. So the USA won their first match against Canada. So then they had to play Pakistan. And this is where it gets interesting. Pakistan put up 159 runs, and then in reply, the United States put up 159 runs. They tied. So in cricket, in this format, if you tie, you have to settle it. So it goes what is called a super over. And what an over is in cricket, you throw 6 good balls, and whoever has the highest score wins. And in the super over, the United States actually beat Pakistan by 5 runs. Pakistan needed 7 to win off the last ball. They needed 6 to tie to force the second super over, but they didn't do it because he only hit a ground ball. And it only scored 1 run, and so the U.S. won the super over. And that was considered a cricket upset. Somebody said it would be like the Durham Bulls if they beat the Boston Red Sox. and I'm like, well, that may not be the best thing. But then they had to play India, and against India, they lost by 7 wickets with 10 balls remaining. And to me, that proved that they could hang with the big boys, because India and Pakistan are 2 of the biggest teams in the world. And then because their match against Ireland was rained out, or as they call it in cricket, abandoned, you get a point for not completing a match because of rain, because you got 2 points for a win and 1 point for not completing a match, and no points for a loss. And so because of that, they advanced to the second round, or what is called the Super 8s in T20 cricket. They'll now play a second set of round-robin games in group format. And the top 2 teams out of these 2 groups of 4 will contest the semifinals and the final of the knockout. And here's the thing. I don't expect the U.S. team to get out of either one of these groups, but crazier things have happened. Like I said, they beat Pakistan in the super over. Maybe they can knock off one of these teams, but it's going to be pretty much all full member nations except for the United States in the second round. But here's the most important thing. The United States, because of this result, has also qualified automatically for the 2026 2020 World Cup. So
I'm glad you know something about cricket, because I do not.
Because of cricket's glorious aristocracy to always reward those in prime positions or who have always been full members, it actually worked in our favor this time, that because we finished in the top 8 this time, we get to reap the spoils, and we don't have to go through the arduous qualifying process of the T20 World Cup, because you have to win your sub-regional, then you have to win your regional qualifier, then you have to win the world qualifier, and it's just a whole rigmarole that you have to go through. It's almost like they try to keep the associate nations down and prop up the full members more, but right now, the U.S. has got to take this momentum. And of course, this summer, we're going to have 2 more cricket competitions. We're going to have Major League Cricket. And of course, it'll be the 3rd season of minor league cricket, which we were talking about earlier, where the Morrisville Raptors play.
Nice.
So get out and support these cricket teams, because they're looking for your support. It is not a bad deal. I think admission to these games is like really low. I don't even think it's $10.
Wow.
And
Get in $10
they sell
now, it'll
souvenirs
be
there. They sell
$16
drinks.
in a couple years.
And it's really a great day out. They have a little pavilion there you can sit under on benches and stuff, so you're not sitting in the sun. And they have stands too you can sit in. But if you're going to sit there, I implore you put on some sunscreen, maybe wear a floppy hat, keep the sun off of you, because those cricketers out there, that's what they're wearing. If you've ever seen cricketers wear the white type sunscreen on their lips and everything, because they're out there all day.
Yeah, that sounds nice. I'll do it.
And it's a fun time. So I implore people to
Yeah.
do it. And if you want to watch any of these matches, if you have it on your
Hey,
cable system,
if
you
you go
know,
to a game, let me know. I'll go with you.
yeah, yeah. But if anybody wants to watch these matches that are going to be happening, they're on a channel called Willow TV, and you can either pay for a subscription or some cable systems. I know Spectrum Cable has it. If you have certain packages on Spectrum Cable, you can get Willow TV on Spectrum.
Willow
So,
TV.
yeah, and
Okay.
that is, and they are showing the World Cup right now. And also, if you get the Yes Network, they will be showing some of Major League Cricket this year. They've signed on to show 7 cricket matches. So
Wow. That's cool.
it's growing. So anyway, and speaking of sports, the U.S. isn't quite in the world to lead in. Charlotte FC won last night, 1-0 over DC United, and so they're keeping a hold on that 5th playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. So let's go, Charlotte.
It makes me excited for 2026, man. I know I'm thinking way ahead, but I'd love to get to a World Cup game, whether it's Atlanta or DC, because there's not going to be one in Charlotte, unfortunately.
Now, speaking of Charlotte, will you attend the Copa America semifinal?
Sure.
Because that's a major world tournament. That's basically the South American Confederation hosting their tournament here on American soil as sort of a tune-up for the World
What the
Cup.
date is on that by any chance?
Well, it's going to be happening later on this month. I can't remember it, but it's going to be in sync with the Euros, which have already started. So basically, I saw a meme for it today. You can start watching the Euros at 6 a.m. and have games on all day, every 3 hours from 6 a.m. all the way to 9 p.m. with Copa America group matches.
Jeez.
So
I don't have
if
that
you're a
much
soccer
time.
file, you are in heaven this week.
Yeah.
So, you're getting tired.
I am
and
tired,
I can tell
man.
by that it may be time for us to wrap it up.
We appreciate it, folks. I'm exhausted. Cat Daddy's exhausted.
Yes.
Truly,
I'm
we
reaching over to cut a
appreciate
light on. There we go. Now I'm back in
we
sight.
truly appreciate you sticking around and supporting Liberty Inc. and all of the guests that we have on here.
Mm-hmm.
And we truly appreciate all your support. So thank you to Rob and all of the LPNC.
Thank you, Rob, for letting us do this.
Yeah, Rob lets us do this. So he allows us to be on here. So thank you.
Now, hey, before we leave, is Rob a dad?
Rob is a dad.
Yeah, so let's wish him a happy Father's Day.
To Rob and everyone watching. You'll see this a little late, but happy belated Father's Day. Keep up the good work. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much. This is Groo and Dub signing off.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.